I'll call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard, March 8th, 2022 at 6 p.m. First order of business, of course, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone like to lead us in that this evening? Okay, right, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And so now I will close this portion of the Select Board meeting and open us up as a local liquor control board. I believe our first item on the agenda is an overview of the local liquor control board by Martin Prevost. There's Martin zooming in. Oh, great. Well, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, I'm having problems with my computer, so I have you on my phone, so I apologize. You're going to get just my voice.
That's fine. Thank you.
So I appreciate you inviting me to your meeting, and my understanding is you have a few new members and maybe not necessarily a veteran board in place that would like some, I don't know, some input, some guidance. I mean, anything we can do to help you, that's what we're here for. So I guess I'll start it by saying, do you have any specific questions for me?
I think maybe an overview of the process and sort of our role and what we do when it comes to the approval of the licenses, or our job as local liquor control board would be a great place to start.
Okay. Well, I mean, essentially you have, as the local control commissioners, have the same authority as the state board has to issue, suspend, revoke, condition, and otherwise deal with all applicants that come before you. You have the first bite at the apple, if you will, to
Martin, you just muted yourself.
hang on.
Martin, I
Is that
think-
better? I'm sorry.
Yes,
I don't
that's
know-
better.
I don't know
Thank
where
you.
I'll cut out, so let me just basically start over. You folks have, you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. You folks have the same authority as the state control board does. As the local control commissioners, you have the ability to issue, revoke, suspend, and condition licenses that come before you. You have the first bite at the apple, if you will. It comes to you folks first before it comes to us. So you can set those conditions or voice any concerns you have with the applicant. We do not control any entertainment. We do also approve outside consumption permits after the town has approved them first. So your class licenses that would come before you are your first and third, which is your bars and restaurants, your beer and wine license and your spirit license. Your second class licenses, which are your convenience stores, grocery stores, mom and pop stores on the corners, and outside consumption permits for the bars and restaurants would come to you before they come to us for consideration. So you get that first bite, and currently you get the last bite as well, because we send the license to the town clerk to sign before it becomes valid. That, under our new licensing program, our system that we're creating right now as we speak, will eliminate that second step, but certainly we wouldn't issue the license without the town approving it when they have that authority to do so. So that's a quick overview of the application process and the control we have there. You folks may or may not know, we have an enforcement division that will do sporadic random compliance checks on your establishments to make sure they're conforming with not selling and serving minors. And we have random sporadic inspections to keep them in check at various times of the year, day, week, month. We do not announce our visits. They're 100% spontaneous. So that's, the 30,000 foot view of what we do. But, specifically you folks have the ability to issue and condition these licenses before they come to us.
Thank you, Martin. I had a question just because since I've been on the board, generally I've just seen the approvals. How would we, if there was an enforcement action and it was recommended that we suspended a license, how would that work?
Well, keep in mind, and I apologize for not saying this sooner, we can't subject the licensees to double jeopardy. So either the local level takes the action and sanctions them, or the state level does. I'll be honest with you, 99% of the time it's on a state level. Most of the municipalities say, well, let the state take care of it. I'd like to see the municipalities get a little more involved in that myself, only because the state board has certain parameters and agenda that they follow where it may not be relevant to the control commissioners. So if there were a violation, we would generally, I've been out of I was an investigator for almost 20 years. I've been out of it for about 4 years now. I'm sitting behind a desk now as an administrator. So I'm just trying to think the best way. When I was in the field, if we had a violation in a community, I would be going to the local town and saying, look, we have a problem here. Who wants to take care of it? You folks or us? If it's a violation of state law, we're going to take it. But if it's a violation of a rule or regulation, we may very well ask the town to say, do you want to take it and sanction them locally? We do not, unfortunately, deal with any infractions of town ordinances. That has to be done on a town level. But there's a process, and there's a due process. Everything goes before the Liquor Control Board, with the exception of what the control board has given our enforcement field to deal with. We've gone to writing civil tickets for a lot of the regulation offenses, low lighting, serving after hours, even to some degree of serving minors. During compliance checks, we've made them tickets instead of criminal offenses. So they get a ticket instead of having to go to court. That's because the courts, quite frankly, were getting backlogged, and these were minor things in their eyes, and they weren't getting dealt with it in appropriate ways. So we have some other ways to do it. So if there's a violation, we have to decide whether we want to go local or state level.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Lanny.
Yes, Martin, thank you. The question I had, I was reading some of the information we were given about licenses we're going to have to rule on tonight. And I noticed some in the past that have has an offense listed, but and it lists the number of the offense, but I don't understand really what that is. Where do we find the regulation 2036 and regulation 36, and where do we find these things at that I could see what they actually were, the warnings or the violations?
On our website, under enforcement section, we have all our general regulations posted. What I want to caution you on that, unfortunately, is, as you can imagine, regulations change, basically from year to year. So regulation 37 5 years ago may not be 37 today. So I just caution people to understand that what the violation was at the time. And unfortunately, that is a little bit of a problem trying to figure out what it was at that time if you didn't have the law books to look back and say, oh, it was amended on this date, it got changed to this on that date. So it's kind of tough. But we have what we call, historically, it's called a yellow history card, because it was a yellow card 25, 30 years ago. And it's no longer a yellow card, but it kept that name. We have the violations in more detail, and they are certainly available to the municipalities. When there was a violation, the municipality was notified. So you may already have that in your records if you were keeping those. But I'm trying to think. So you have renewals in front of you that actually say they were convicted of a violation in 37 or something along those lines?
It's 36. It was way in the past, but that was going to be another question: is how long do these things stay with someone who is applying? I mean, do they drop off after a fashion of 5, 10 years, or how does that work?
No, they stay on their record. They're permanent records.
Okay.
So they're there, but they will drop off in tracking them real easy because of record retention laws. They're still there. We have the history that goes back right to when the license was issued. So, like I said, it's kind of tough. If you got one from 10 years ago that said it was a 36, it would take me a little bit of time to figure out what 36 was 10 years ago to make sure that you're not saying it was, that could have been dim lighting as opposed to now 36 might be, serving a minor. Certainly two infractions that are at different ends of the spectrum. So I would just be careful about that. So to answer your question, it's not necessarily simple, but there is tracking for that we could produce for you. It is public record. So anyone could get it, but certainly when town clerks call and say, we're looking for this, we pull the file out and scan through it and find out what we can find for you.
And then if there is a code, if that's been broken, are you folks are in charge of remedial training of some sort? Or how does that work if the license, I don't know if the license gets pulled, but if they violated something by, say, serving to underage, okay, and they were caught in that act by you folks, do they have to go through remedial training before they can then reapply for a license, or how does that work?
There are certain violations that trigger that as an automatic sanction. You will get retrained. You will retrain all your staff, and our board has even dictated how they will be retrained. They won't be able to do the online one. They're going to have to take their whole team to an in-person one, and then. So some of them are automatic, and it's mostly the ones that are involved with selling alcohol to minors or selling during a compliance check. Those are usually mandatory retrains. Other times, other infractions may go before the board. That may be a condition that's imposed on them before their license could be reinstated, or they're given a certain amount of time to get everybody trained, or their license will be suspended or revoked at that point. So it's always an option.
Then one last question: when that happens and you folks reinstate them, does that come back before the town to do a reinstatement as well, or is the onus on you to do it and we're out of the picture at that point in time?
Well, because we suspended them, we would reinstate them, and then technically you can't do the double jeopardy on them and not reinstate them. So that's when we'd say, who wants to take the case and impose the sanctions?
Okay, all right, thank you. That answers all my questions. Very informative. Thank you very much.
Martin, I had a quick question, just looking, as Mr. Collins mentioned, this tracking information that can go back like 13 years or so. I see one with a bunch of notations. What's a good guy letter?
No, that's when they pass a compliance check.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, we use a little slang. So we send bad guy letters and good guy letters.
Gotcha.
If you fail,
Okay.
you're getting a bad guy letter. If you pass,
So
you get a. We believe in positive reinforcement. Someone does something right, you got to tell them they did something right.
That's good to know. Yeah. So if I see a bunch of those and it says good guy letter, TC, I assume that's tobacco compliance, and AC's alcohol compliance. That means they've done what they were supposed to do in certain situations.
That is correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's why I asked about if you could have enough attaboys to get rid of that.
Yeah, I had an old boss that told me you needed 10 attaboys for one oh no. So I'm a firm believer in giving attaboys when they're appropriate.
Great. Dan?
Can you refresh your mind when the curbside alcohol pickup sunsets, or has it already?
I believe it's next year. I believe it's going to be July of 22 or 23, sorry.
And that's for first, second, and third class licenses, correct?
I don't know if it's, I apologize. I don't keep up on that, but I know it's for first and third. I don't know if it continued for second. I'll be real honest with you. We don't see a lot of it in second class statewide, except for manufacturers that have a tasting room and a second class license. We're not seeing a lot of the curbside second class activity.
And then what is the status of the fortified wine licensures? Is that being absorbed into, has the state made a decision whether that's going to be absorbed into regular liquor licenses?
It's before the legislature right now.
Okay. And it's a little confusing when you see a fortified liquor license because it's a totally separate license. So is there about putting a box on a regular liquor license? So it's easy to, when someone comes to see a liquor license, they know they're actually looking at your first, second, or third class license as opposed to your fortified license?
Are you talking about the visible one in the establishment or during the application process?
The visible one.
It should be a standalone license. Your fortified wine license is a document of its own currently and will be under our new system.
Thank you.
Any
They'll all
further-
look the same from a distance, unfortunately. But when you read them, it'll say right under it what type of license is. It'll say the fortified wine license.
Questions from anyone?
Really glad we did this.
Yeah, this was very helpful, Martin. Thank you. The board thanks you for coming in and giving some of us a refresher, and some this may be the first time we've heard this. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed doing it. I wish I could be there in person, and I probably could have been if I organized myself a little more, but it's kind of a busy time of year for me. So doing it remotely became an option for me. But anytime, actually, we'd love to do it for any, quite frankly, I'd like to make a habit of making myself available all around the calendar to say, hey, if somebody needs us to come in, let us know. And I do have some more help now that we can probably do that. If you need this session again, be more than welcome to do it. It makes everything flow better for all of us.
Great. Thank you again, Martin.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was very helpful. So we do have a number of renewals for our consideration. I would note that the first three are all second class. So if we felt inclined, we could move them as one motion, all three at once. The last three, I believe, are all going to have to be separate, given the nature of the licenses that are up for renewal. Willing to entertain,
You want to do it, Alex?
Ally?
Sure, I'll do some. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the second class liquor licenses for Hanover Consumer Corporation, or Cooperation, excuse me, Inc., doing business as Co-op Food Store, 209 Maple Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, as well as Summit Stores LLC, doing business as Summit Stores, 3479 Woodstock Road, Quechee, Vermont, 05059, as well as KB Ventures Inc., doing business as Jake's Market and Deli, 1477 Maple Street, Hartford, Vermont, 05047.
Okay, we have a motion. Second from Lanny. Any discussion?
I'm gonna recuse myself. Sorry, I didn't do that sooner.
Okay,
I'm gonna abstain.
Dan is going to abstain. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope, and we've got an abstention and a recusal. So, all right, so we have moved those first three. The next one is the renewal for the Hartford Post 26 American Legion. That's a license of the third class. Happy to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this because I am a member of the Legion, not just this Legion, but I am going to recuse myself from this vote because I'm a Legion member.
Okay, so Lanny will also recuse himself. Motion from any of the board members who will vote on it?
I'll move.
Mary, okay.
Okay, I move the renewal of a third class license for Hartford Post 26, American Legion Inc., doing business as Hartford Post 26, American Legion Inc., 27 Farmvu, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ally will second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And
Abstain.
looks we have Lanny abstaining, Kim abstaining, and Dan abstaining,
I usually recuse.
or recused.
Either one.
Okay, so that would bring us to consideration of the renewal of the River Roost Brewery. That's a first class and outside consumption license. Lanny?
So I'd like to make a motion that we renew a first class and outside consumption license for River Roost Brewery LLC, doing business as River Roost Brewery, 230 South Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, second.
I second.
Mary will second. Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? No. And we have Kim and Dan also with a refusal and an abstention. And that brings us to the final renewal on our agenda. That's the renewal of Simon Pierce. Happy to entertain a motion or discussion.
I move the renewal of Simon Pierce, US Incorporated, doing business as Simon Pierce Restaurant and Parker House Bistro, 1792 Main Street, Quechee, Vermont. This is for 05059 for a first class, third class, and outside consumption license.
Just need a second.
Second.
Ally will second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Looks like we have 5 ayes, a recusal and abstention. All right, so I'm going to close our work as the local liquor control board and reopen as the Hartford Select Board. We have an emergency item on the agenda tonight, so that needs to be taken care of first. This agenda item is the posting of the town treasurer position. Our current treasurer gave his resignation, I believe, effective April 15th. So Tracy, if you could give us a little background on that.
Yeah, so this has happened a couple of times before, but maybe not while any of you were sitting up here. What we are going to need to move forward tonight to continue the process is approval of posting this very standard appointment that you all have on your desks. That way we can get this started because John will be retiring as of April 15th, and we need someone to sign all the manifests and sign all the checks. So this allows us to begin posting for someone to fill the remainder of his term, which goes until March 2023, I think it says on that posting. And get that process started. You, as the select board, do appoint the person who will act as town treasurer through the remainder of that term. So ideally, in terms of a timeline, on the 2nd, we'll be bringing forth some candidates. If not, again, on today's the 8th plus 14, the 22nd of March or April 2nd. Thank you, Kim. My whiteboard's already been updated. So ideally on April 2nd, we will bring you all candidates and you can select a new town treasurer for the remainder of this term. If that doesn't work out in terms of finding somebody with the knowledge, skills, and experience to do this, we may see a special meeting sometime between the 2nd and the 15th in order to maintain continuity of operations.
Okay. Then
Is there a way within Vermont state law to do a temporary town manager until we can find somebody permanent? Like if we can't find somebody that's gonna take this on
So
full
there's
time?
there's no provision right now that we've been able to find in the last few days. And I reached out to VLCT as well for a backup town treasurer. We don't have an assistant town treasurer or anyone that provides a secondary layer of authoritative signing, which is problematic for me. And I have expressed some frustration with that because with no continuity of operations, we could find ourselves in the future of having a problem to get all these things signed. But basically, this is the only path forward, is finding someone to fulfill the rest of this term.
And the liability to a town treasurer is what exactly? As far as for his signatory authority, what liability does he have if something goes awry, if it doesn't quite work out? I'm not quite sure whether you
So
say you have accountability, I guess, or how does that work?
The town treasurer, while elected, like you all, is also under the provision of the directors and officers liability insurance and is considered an employee. Now, if we're talking about malfeasance,
Yes.
that is something that definitely this has brought up for me that I need to gain a better understanding of in terms of where those overall controls are. This does bring up a lot of questions for me for how we maintain control over that, because ideally you would always have a secondary set of eyes on this. The finance director does do a lot of that work, but this is unusual in that this is an elected position.
Can you just, because I'm not at all understanding how that works. The finance director puts everything together and then distributes it to the town manager for his signature, and then that comes to us. So that the bulk of the work is done on finance administrator for that, or how does that really work as far as a compilation of all the bills or to come before the?
The town treasurer signs off on them as well, and actually signs off as the final manifest, okay to pay. This is all accurate and complete. And I believe it's his signature on the checks as well. And also, for example, we were here a few weeks ago discussing the line of credit. The town treasurer is the only person that can manage the investments in the line of credit.
Right. So it's very, very important for us to have that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kim?
Just a point of clarification, considering the issues we had around our emergency meeting, could we call this item just an added item and not an emergency item to the agenda for the minutes and for the record?
No, and actually that would make it worse, because
Okay.
you're not allowed to just add items to the agenda unless it's an urgent item that has a immediate deadline. And this actually does, because we have just about a month and a week for you to find someone and appoint them.
Okay,
So
so that's
it-
appropriate.
it's appropriate, and it's how we should be doing it, which is why it's actually the very first thing after you close as the local control board.
And just as someone who has served in another town a long time ago as assistant treasurer, I highly recommend us trying for that task going forward, because it wasn't needed very often, but when it was, it kept the town moving, so.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. A couple of things on this. I guess the first question is, if we were going to make a motion, I believe it just to, what would it be, Tracy, to post this publicly, post the opening for the town treasurer position?
To authorize me to post this and to begin to gather resumes and cover letters.
Okay.
Basically, that's where VLCT landed, is you all are the finders of the town treasurer, but you need to tell me that it's okay to post this.
Okay. Would it make sense to have this read into the record, since this is an item some people may not have seen?
We can attach it rather than read it in.
Attach it to the minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll attach it to the minutes, and then we can probably update the packet as well, Lana, or do you just want it in the minutes? Whatever, she says whatever we like, so we could put it in both places.
Okay, that would be great, just so that we can get that out for people to see prior to when we actually post it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I
okay.
I have a question about this for Tracy. I was just wondering, so this position is a town employee, correct?
The same way you all are town employees,
Okay.
in that you fill out all those forms and you get money from the town.
Great.
So it's a compensated position. How's that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that sounds like a yes to me. Okay, so the question here I have about qualifications, the first is that the first qualification is that candidates shall be a resident of the town and shall be a registered voter in the town. And I was wondering if that's an amendment that we can make, or if that's written into the code.
That is written into the charter,
Okay. Because that's a little bit restrictive, right, in terms of our search.
same way as you guys, and that is restricted.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So.
Just
So
signing.
I'm willing to make a motion, but I gotta ask a question of, you want it like a date, any dates associated with this, Tracy?
We put April 1st on there at the very bottom. And that's just a deadline. You know, if you okay me to post it, I'm sure if we don't get any great resumes, we can extend that with your good graces.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mr.
I make a
Collins?
motion, we authorize the town manager to accept applications and cover letters, resumes for the position of town treasurer for the town of Hartford, Vermont, and to proceed forward on that, to report back to the board. And how do you want it? how do want it
You
read?
can, that first sentence was just fine.
Okay.
In terms of the motion, all we need to know is that I'm okay to post.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You're okay, boss.
All right, we got a
I
second.
guess so. I'm not sure exactly where we stopped at. but
No,
I
that's
just want to
good.
make sure it covers all the, that's why I asked about a date. I want to make sure that it covers the date needed to get the job done. So,
Okay, we've got a second from Kim. Any discussion before we vote?
yeah, can you just read back what you've got on it so I can,
I don't have it. I'll have to listen to it.
okay,
You went too fast.
okay, that's fine.
We good
I
to
know
go?
I-
You wanted to-
Should we amend that motion by also giving town manager permission to publish this document? Was that part of the request?
Just to be able to advertise for the
Oh, okay.
position.
Sure, to advertise the position.
Do we feel like we have what we need with this motion?
Yeah, and Lana and I'll
Okay.
We're
Okay.
good.
I'm good.
Well, good. Okay, great. So I have a second discussion or vote. Okay, well, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. It's really hard not having something written down.
Yeah, no,
what I was
that's
supposed to say.
fine. Are you
So,
comfortable? Well, we voted.
I'm very, yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, good.
I'm comfortable with it. I just, like I say, it's not. easy
Yeah, I
to
know. This one
wrestle
was, this
with. Clerk,
It's
has
the
to
first, you know, this
Yeah,
came up when
thanks.
it came up and we had to deal with it.
Teach me to volunteer.
No problem. All right, so our next item is the order of agenda. Anything, comments on the agenda or changes to the agenda? We good?
You could follow up on that page 3. No, no.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, so it looks like the agenda is good. All right, so moving into the select board portion, first we have public comments. So we will start, we will start with people who are in the room if they'd like to comment, and then go to people who are online. I'd ask that when you do comment, you identify yourself and the town or village you live in, that you direct your comments to the select board as a whole and avoid personal attacks. And I believe there's a 5-minute max essentially for public comments. So if there are any public comments, starting in the room. Thank you. Just please state your name and town of residence.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heidi Duto from White River Junction. Congratulations to one and all for winning the election. And my question this evening, Mike Hoyt,
Yep.
is on Thursday evening, March 3rd, there was discussion about the charter committee.
Mhm.
And it was the first I had ever heard of the charter committee. And my question is, what stage is this charter committee in?
Okay, thank you. I think maybe Tracy can give more updates or someone on the board, but I believe it is a charter to look periodically at our town charter as written. I believe right now we're still in the process of identifying or soliciting applicants to it. Tracy or someone on the board, do you have info some more on what the membership is and where we are?
Yeah, so the last time we held a charter committee was in 2016. That's what we consider the 4th charter committee. We are a charter town, and that is complicated in that the state does have to approve our charter. There's a big back end process of the state. We'll touch on that when we get there, but the legislature does have to approve our charter. Every time a charter committee closes, they actually produce a draft charge to the next charter committee saying, this is what we didn't get to, this is what we think you should handle next. And that sits until there's enough movement towards the charter committee. We had, for a time, a pretty quick turnaround of charter committees, but this one kind of died out in 2016. So we had 3 people sitting there with open applications, but we didn't have enough applications to move forward. We recently got enough to move forward, and that triggered a conversation between myself, the superintendent, this board chair at the time, and the board chair for the school board at the time, saying, okay, we've now reached a critical mass of people who are interested in participating. Who do you have in your pile? Who do we have in our pile? And we should probably bring these forth and get these people moving. So unfortunately, it is one of those open pots that waits until we have enough people, like town and school committee meeting. If you all have noticed, we've now got a full plate for that one as well. And when the 5th charter committee closes at whatever point that is, they will hand over the reins to the 6th charter committee, whether that goes live immediately or again, kind of waits for enough people to be interested in helping. And also we get the word out that we need a little help with that is up to where that goes.
Okay, so it sounds like at this point, we're still sort of in the finding the membership before it actually starts doing
You
its work,
have enough
essentially.
people in the pool, and we'll bring that forth on the 22nd to see if those are the folks that you want to appoint. But there are enough live applications sitting in the folder that resides in my office to actually have enough people to to start this committee up.
Okay, so the 22nd is when we would review the applicants and vote on them. Ally?
Just a quick question. How long is each charter committee's term?
Till it gets passed by the legislature. How's that? So I asked Kevin, Coach Christie, he's done this before, and he said really 2 years is kind of the bank that you want to do these days, because we do have to do our own internal process, and there's a lot of like community meetings and approval by the voters, and then it has to go to the state legislature.
Ben?
So I can assume that we're still accepting applications for the charter committee.
We are until, and we can bring those all forth on the 22nd, so that agenda gets finalized the week before. So until 22 minus 7 is
15.
the 15th. So probably by the agenda is due to Valley News by 10 a.m. on the 17th. So that would be your absolute drop dead deadline to get an application in and get the agenda finalized.
Are the applications available for people on our website?
It is the standard board and committee application
board.
that you can find under employment opportunities.
Okay.
So there was no meeting already about this?
We met to just understand between the four of us if we had enough people to actually bring forth the nominations to each other's boards, because there is joint people that work with both, and then also to gain an understanding from Coach Christie, because he's done this before, what the entire process looks like.
So
Because
it was yourself, Coach Christie, and whom else?
the current chair of this board and the superintendent of schools.
And
So-
we did on last Thursday at our organizational meeting discuss that we will have a member of the select board on the charter committee. And that's Lanny.
So can I ask one more question about this topic? And I have one more topic just to touch base on.
Okay, sure.
So I just want clarification, because I watched the meeting from Zoom and then I rewatched the meeting again. Could Mary already just touch base on what she meant when she wanted to be on the charter committee, when she said, I know everyone that's already on this committee? I didn't understand that comment.
Okay, I think I'll leave that to Mary, whether she wants to address it, but.
I just wanted a little clarification, because I heard it and then I had to rewatch it and I had to rewatch it and I would rewind it and.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I just felt that I could work with the individuals that I knew their names. That's all.
That's all you meant by that? I didn't know if they had already been chosen. That's why I was very confused, because I hadn't even heard that there was a charter committee coming forth.
Neither had I.
Yeah, I think that caught some of us by surprise, just given the
Because
nature of how it.
The
it is.
website is I use the website. I use it a lot.
Yeah.
You all know I use it a
Oh,
lot.
sure, of course.
But
Yeah.
I honestly did not even know that there was a charter committee coming forth.
Yeah, well, it sounds like just the nature of it is sort of like,
It's hidden.
and it sort of evolves when there are finally enough people, like it comes together and then they start working. And I do know that process, right? When they do, and they make recommendations to change the charter, like when they put in the local option tax, and then that has to go to Montpelier. And they can take 2 years before they actually pass it and get the governor to sign it. So it is one of those. And to the extent we can, now that we're coming into this, when we're getting people putting their names in and stuff, if we can maybe feature it a little more prominently or find its doings a little easier to pick out on the website, I think that would be good. Kim?
I would just add also that I feel for you with that website. We all know, and that the town manager is a new website, whole
Right.
platform is in the works. And I would love to see like all of the openings from any committees or commissions really prominently available and accessible. And just my personal experience with the town chart, it's come up over the last few years of like, we really need to get this going again. And I imagine it's part of the select board's responsibility, and like I don't think it's ever been like really promoted as we need applicants for this committee, as well as it could have been. So I agree with you. It wasn't very prominently showcased.
Rocket?
Yeah, Heidi, I just wanted to understand maybe what you're trying to say. Is it that because it wasn't on our printed agendas either that we got. So I'm just trying to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to understand your words. Is that Mary's statement of already knowing the committee members made it sound to you as if it already existed, but hadn't been announced to the public? Is that sort of the cause of confusion? Because I think what my understanding, what Mary is saying is that she just knows a ton of people in town, and I'm saying this is someone who knows very few people in town.
No, it sounded to me like the committee had already been chosen.
I see. Yeah, so that to none of our knowledge that's the case. It was just like that was kind of sprung on all of us day of on Thursday. It wasn't on our documents or anything.
Kim?
I just also want to add, same, like that evening, Tracy said, we also need liaison for the town charter committee. She did say out loud, the applicants the people who had applied for that, but they had not yet, they had not been appointed, may not be appointed, but that might have been the context. Like I wrote down the names, she said, of the people that were had applied, and that might be what Mary was referring to too, but there was no, and Manny even pointed out, he said that they haven't been appointed yet, they may not be part of that committee. So I think it was just sort of a very preliminary looking at this big list of committees. And
I mean, I don't want to nitpick,
It's lost in the weeds.
right? I don't want to nitpick at all,
Okay.
but
And point of clarification, it's still open for people to apply
Yes.
to that.
right.
Yep, and then I think you had one
the only-
more. Oh, go
The
ahead.
only thing I want to say about, like, if we're gonna like add people to committees or something, maybe even before the website's updated, maybe the board can announce it at meetings, because then the public is more aware that there's openings or we're extending, or
Yeah, that could be up.
that way it's more,
it has been.
it's more like knowledgeable that people have the opportunity to put applications in or go to the website to search these
Right,
items.
I agree. Ally?
Yeah, Heidi, I think we each in our kind of the committees that we liaise for, we try to, when we do the commission updates at every part of the agenda for a regular meeting, we try our best to say, oh, we had a resignation or we have an opening or something like that. But we could certainly remind more and more often for sure, and do a better job of making sure
Yeah.
folks know about openings.
Thank you. And the other topic that I wanted to touch base on is there seems to be an issue with the Wilder Park and Ride.
With the Wilder Park and Rec?
Wilder Park and
Okay.
Ride again. And I know we thought about the South Main Street parking lot and getting signage.
Yep,
And when we had problems up in the Wilder parking lot, park and ride before, it never got posted. And I was wondering if maybe we can put some signs up there, Tracy? Is that something we might be able to look into?
So I think what I'm hearing you say is the official signs did not end up at the Wilder Park and Ride. Totally.
Similar to downtown
Yeah.
South Main Street,
Okay.
like stating like, no.
Yeah. So, again, we can't, there's a
Because
lot of
it is
eyes, but
town-owned,
we can't always find everything at once. So it's always really helpful when everybody points these things out to us, especially if we get it in an email. So that way we can start a chain with the staff.
yeah. I
But
guess
yeah.
that question is too, is that a town-owned park and ride or is it a
Yes.
state-owned? park? It is, okay.
Chairman.
Lenny, yep.
Yeah, Tracy, do you know how many, well, Hannah's right here, how many signs were ordered
We
for that? If we did order signs and they just didn't get put up yet, or what was the status on how many got ordered? Because they're all gonna say the same thing, so. Just,
See, downtown states South Main, it would have to be different signs ordered.
so,
So Heidi's correct that we did order them specifically to say South Main Street parking lot. As that was what we were kind of targeting at
then
that time.
did you order any for the park and ride? Okay. So,
Well, certainly, thanks for bringing this to our attention, and if we need to order some signs for that park and ride, I think
Yeah,
that's something
because-
we can do if there've been problems there recently, so.
Yeah, I've gone to Hartford PD about it
Have you?
because residents within that neighborhood have reported it to me because they think that, I take care of everything. And they come to me because they know that I'm more than willing to come to the board and I'm more than willing to call HPD. And I'm not afraid to speak out, so I'm coming to you. I don't know if I should have gone to Hannah or Tracy directly, but
Well,
we have had issues up there, so I'm just,
sure. Yeah,
Thank
and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. That's great.
so. And there is still one car up there, which I can forward it on.
Okay.
that has been up there for months.
HPD is aware and they're tracking it.
Yeah,
So
I know.
it's okay.
I know, I've sent it on to them, so
Okay.
thank
great.
you so much.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Any other comment from people in the room?
One hand just went up.
Went up?
Can I just,
Oh, yeah, Laney.
Tracy, can you see to it that we get some signs ordered for that?
I already sent an email out.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Tracy.
Great.
We have
Answer my
a
question.
hand up on Zoom, I think.
Lauren, can you bring Jeff Arnold over?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations to all, to Mary and Rocket for joining the board and for Mike becoming the chair. I'm from Wilder, Village of Wilder, and my question is, since Hannah's leaving, can we start a search to replace her sooner than a year? And how are you preparing the ground for that? And secondly, what's being done about replacing the assistant chief of police? I know we started a survey about the chief of police, but shouldn't we be looking for people to replace both positions simultaneously? And thirdly, can you post that we need a town tree warden, please? That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have any preliminary updates at least, Tracy?
Yeah, so the position for the Director of Public Works, because again, we try not to talk about people, but positions, was approved by me and has posted. We're doing an internal managed search for that. So the HR director and myself will be collecting resumes and doing the preliminary work, and we'll be asking as normal for another department head to sit in on that with us. Sometimes we ask for 2 department heads. We're going to see what everybody's capacity is. In terms of the deputy chief, we received sage advice from VLCT and IACP to not simultaneously look for both, but allow our new chief the opportunity to be a part of that process for their deputy chief. So the internal structure there is changing. We do have 2 new acting lieutenants, Acting Lieutenant Moody and Acting Lieutenant Kelly, and we will be opening up the formal process for lieutenant, which is the 3rd in the chain of command. It is a more extensive process for that position that typically requires oral boards. So it's a little bit longer of a process internally. And the tree warden is up to the board. So please let me know how I can help with that one. But happy to help, but would need somebody to see what they need me to do.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the boards and commission vacancies on the website, which does include the 5th Charter Commission. It's got the tree warden, Conservation Commission, 1 member available, Energy Commission, 4 members available, Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion, 1 member available, Historic Preservation Commission, 1 member available, Parks and Recreation, 2 members available, and the 5th Charter Commission, 4 members available. But I wonder.
Wait. Tree warden. I mean,
Tree
for
warden.
our tree board, rather. Tree board, we need 1 person. Can you put
Also-
that down? Yeah.
Okay,
For the tree board?
And then I guess
Tree
I'm
board,
wondering, maybe what would help us in this process is, and again, like, I don't want to ask more of staff, but however the best way, happy to try to volunteer or something, but if like weekly, we were posting the commission and board vacancies on the listserv or on the Facebook page and stuff more frequently, or even a Valley News thing. I mean, I do like just knowing how long the 5th Charter Commission has been open, and like to attract the tree warden is a big ask. So I guess if there is a way for us to advertise those more, I'd be happy to help. I don't want to ask more.
Totally. Not to pick on Valley News, but they do cost us to put ads up, while the listserv and Facebook are free. So maybe we'll start there with the stuff that is fairly low level to post, and that it's easy and quick. And then we can see what that gets us. But I can totally see once a week being easy enough.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
And we'll add tree board member to that
Yep.
as well. Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Any other hands up?
There are not.
Okay. All right, well, we will then go to select board comments and announcements. I can start down here if anyone has any comments or announcements. Rocket?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Someone submitted online to the select board. And we think there was a mistake where they entered my name. They're trying to reach me, but they entered my name. That's very nice. Thanks. Appreciate that. But I have no idea who to respond to. So if you're watching this, you can email me directly. I'll be happy to respond to your thoughts. Thank you.
Ally?
Oh, and Hannah's walking back in. I mean, not to put Hannah on the spot, but I believe this is our last meeting with our Director of Public Works, so I just wanted to. I just wanted to.
Off camera, Hannah did look at Ally. She was caught.
Sorry, Hannah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I did just want to offer a thank you for your just immense expertise and service to the town of Hartford. I know I've been so impressed with just the immense load that you've carried and the professionalism in which you've carried on projects. Huge projects like the roundabout and, dealing with labor supply, like its shortages and just the immense amount that you've held and done for us in town. So thank you.
I think we can all agree with
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Any other comments from the select board? Kim?
Lanny, I'd like to apologize if I came across as disrespectful at our organizational meeting. It was not my intent. I'm very, and I recognize that sometimes the impact of what someone says can be harmful, even if the intent was not. So I just wanted to appreciate your cooperation in that conversation that I was a little passionate about.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any other select board comments, let's move on to appointments. So we have new appointments. We have two of those. So the first is to consider the appointment of Emily Santos to the Town and School Meeting Committee for a 3-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025. Emily may be on Zoom. If she's on Zoom, I'd say let's bring her over.
Are we all promoting her to panelist at the same time? She should be good to go, Mike.
Okay, Emily, hi, are you there?
Unmute. Emily, can you hear us?
I think it actually got missed.
We're working on it, Emily. We should have you over
It's
soon.
mixed in somewhere with the liquor licenses. So yeah, it's here. It's just out of order. It's right.
Emily, if you check your microphone settings, that might be a option. We've got Pat here if you want to.
Yeah, maybe if it's okay with the board, we'll try to come back to Emily and we'll take up Pat's appointment. So our next appointment, we're considering the appointment of Pat Attilio, if that's correct, to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion, H4I, for a 2-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2024. So Pat, the floor is yours. If you'd like, just please introduce yourself.
This is just like Zoom, but there's no keyboard. Yeah, my name is Pat Attilio, and I live in Quechee. Been a resident of Quechee for 4 years. And in terms of why I want to join the committee, so I lived in New Jersey most of my adult life, and it's a very diverse community down there. And I wasn't really aware of any sort of need, although that was obviously my blind side in New Jersey. Coming up here into Vermont is I moved up here because with my wife because my daughter settled up here in Vermont. She went to Binns, And we're very happy to be here. It's a beautiful place. And we did notice in Valley News and other publications, there were a certain number of racial incidents happening around the state that kind of surprised me. And when I had the good fortune to retire, be able to retire a few years ago, it's always one of my goals to give back. I worked in private sector in technology field for many years, my whole career, and I wanted to do some volunteering and some ways to help the community. And so when I got here in Vermont, I saw a way perhaps to give back and to work in the area of diversity and equity. And I was only here about a year when I attended the first H. Corey meeting up here, actually. I applied for the committee then, but there was enough of a field of applicants that I didn't make the cut back then, but I've been participating as a community member ever since. And I think it's a good group of folks who are pulling in the right direction, and I want to be part of it. And I am a member of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, and I do attend regularly the Vermont State Legislature's Social Equity Caucus. I've been participating in those meetings for about a year and a half. So I've kind of got a good feel for what's happening in this area of racial equity and inclusion around the state. And I just want to do my part for the local efforts.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
God bless.
Thank you. Kim.
I would just like to sort of, as Pat's probably attended more H4 meetings than I have, but I worked with Pat also in one of the working groups with the policy work, and his also just skills with being able to work with data and aggregated data has been a real asset to that group, even when he was not a committee member. And anyway, I guess I'd just like to highly recommend Pat as a member of that committee.
Thank you. Yeah, I point out that I am a technologist by stripe, and I have done a lot of data analysis around in Vermont around traffic stops. And, you might have seen some articles in the Valley News with my name in it.
Great. Elaine?
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. Appreciate your information that you gave us. One of the questions I guess I have is you've been going to meetings, according to Kim, for H. Corey for quite some time. Do you see the charge for the committee as too vague or too much, or is it just the right sweet spot in order to perform the tasks?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that. I did read the charge in preparation for tonight, and I'm not sure I've done it before. I think there's enough there for the committee to sink the teeth into and to get some things done in terms of making recommendations to the board, in terms of providing information to the community, in terms of providing a place where underrepresented groups can come to the town and have someone to talk to. I think it's all there in the charge. Also, in terms of getting a strategic plan together as a recommendation for the town. So it seems like strictly from looking at the charge, it's sufficient.
So you say you came from Connecticut, correct?
New Jersey.
New Jersey, I'm sorry, New Jersey. So knowing that New Jersey's needs are different than Hartford's needs, is there, are you trying to bring the New Jersey philosophy to Vermont, or are you trying to stay with the Vermont philosophies?
I'm trying to, when in Rome, I'm trying to, be a fully fledged member of the community and listen to everyone in the community in every regard here. This is, to be honest, this is the first township committee or government committee I've ever participated in. And it's high time. But no, I don't think I have a lot of, at least from a governing perspective, even involved in the community perspective, that kind of experience bringing from New Jersey. All I have is life experience.
It's just that some people look at us as an idyllic little place in Vermont, like we're a Mayberry in some ways. We're not a Mayberry, but we're also not a Chicago or a Boston, and we're in between there. And
Yeah.
it's just interesting to know whether people bring their thoughts and processes they've had with them from other areas into Vermont, Hartford, to try to bring us to those standards, or they're
Yeah.
willing to work with the ground that's in front
The
of them.
whole thing is a journey for me and a growth opportunity. I'm just looking for ways to contribute.
Good.
You know, and I do come from a basis of data and technology, and that's kind of one perspective I have. But other than that, I've been a project manager also, so I have that orientation.
Okay, thank you.
Pocket.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. You have such a kind comportment, and I think you'll do a great job. One thing that I am, I've obviously conversations around race and diversity can be very, very impassioned. And I was just wondering if you have sort of a thought process about how to approach tough, difficult conversations like that when you're going to get obviously very competing voices. You might get very competing voices. And how you sort of approach a challenge like that.
Yeah, there's a good book I can recommend called Difficult Conversations. But yeah,
Sounds
I
relevant.
think I'm by nature a diplomat and a good listener. And I think being able to listen is, in almost any walk of life, is important. And hear what you try really hard what anybody's trying to say before you respond. So that, I guess, on the top of my head, that would be my first strategy and my first recommendation.
Just a follow up on that. I think Vermont is probably the most diverse it's been in at least a century, and it's still 94% white. And so I just know that these conversations, oftentimes the people, just the language around it can make people feel alarmed or tripped or triggered, even if that's not the intent of it. And so I know that's going to be a very difficult balancing act for the committee.
I don't disagree with you.
You disagree with
I
me?
do not disagree.
Oh, you do not disagree. Yeah, but
Vermont is the most diverse it's ever been since its founding.
it depends on what you
I
measure as
checked the
diversity.
data in terms of population.
Yeah, but so I know that's gonna be a really difficult task, and I do not envy it. There's a reason why I did not want to be on that committee. So I respect that you're stepping up to.
I hope you will.
Well, I'll stop in for a meeting, but I appreciate you stepping up for it. Thank you.
Rocket. Discussion or a motion?
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion, everyone. Good for a
Okay, and then we can see if we can get Emily back. Mr. Chair, I move that the select board appoint Pat Attilio to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2024.
I second that.
Rocket second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, looks like it's unanimous. Thank you so much, Pat. We appreciate you being willing to serve. And now we're going to go back to the appointment of Emily Santod to the Town and School Meeting Committee to see if we can get her over from Zoom to talk with us.
She's coming over.
All right.
Can you try again, Emily?
Hey, Emily, just let us know if when you've been brought over.
Okay.
Oh, we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you for your patience.
Of course. The floor is.
Oh, no.
Motion to deny.
We're still there. Thank you, Emily.
Well, see you around.
If you'd like to maybe just give us, tell us a little bit about your interest in being on this particular committee, that would be wonderful.
Sure. The first time I ever heard about this committee, I was approached by a member who was on the committee, and she said, hey, we could really use your skills. And I said, okay. So I've looked at what the charter says about this committee, and I do think that I have skills and experience that are kind of relevant well, let me just start by saying, I live in Wilder. I grew up in Wilder, graduated from Hartford High, class of '66. And except for a few years when my husband was finishing his Air Force career, I've always lived in Wilder. And during the time, we came back in '82, and for about 20 years-ish, I was the service unit manager for the town of Hartford Girl Scouts. And I did a lot of other jobs with the Girl Scouts that involved event planning and coordination and logistics and that kind of thing, which sounds like that's the kind of thing that this committee gets involved in for the school and town meeting. And so that was intriguing, and I thought, okay, this looks like a way that I can give back.
Great. Thank you. Ally?
Hi, Emily. Thanks so much for applying. And looking at your application, one of the things that you mentioned is just the concern about low rate of voter participation. And I'm just wondering if you have ideas, certainly not to put you on the spot, but if you have ideas off the top of your head of ways in which the town might be able to increase that participation.
I don't have any solution, but I've been part of the problem. I mean, if you were to ask me, do you go to town meeting? Well, not regularly. I vote, but I don't go to town meeting. So I think I haven't given a lot of thought why I don't go to town meeting other than, it's,
Yeah.
you know, what would get me motivated to go? So I'm one of those voices that committee needs to talk to. Let's find out why people like me don't go to town meetings. Although I did go this year via Zoom, and I found it was much more interesting than I remember it being in the past.
That's great.
I appreciate that honesty. Thank you. And that perspective is very helpful.
And during Lanny and I had the opportunity to look into a little bit about the town and school meeting. And I believe one thing that might help participation is that under statute, the town and school committee is empowered to provide refreshments to everyone who shows up. So that may be something that would help. But no, we really appreciate you applying for this and giving us the reasons why you're interested. Any more discussion, or are we ready to make a motion? Lanny.
Emily, I just want to say that I praise you because the old adage of either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution, you're becoming part of the solution from part of the problem. And I love to see that. So be part of the solution. Thank you.
Great. Ally.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Emily Santos to the Town and School Meeting Committee for a 3-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025.
Get a second from Dan. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that takes care of the new appointments. We have several reappointments to consider. My understanding is that usually when reappointments happen, the actual people looking to be reappointed may not show up by Zoom or in person. So I feel like we can, if anyone here is a reappointment, or if anyone on Zoom who's being reappointed would like to put their hand up, they can. But otherwise, I am ready to entertain discussion or a motion. Thank you, Lanny.
Sir, can we move these as a slate?
I don't know.
I think that you totally could through H. How's
Yeah.
that? I think the health officer serving as humane officer would be the only one that we would probably do best to have a separate.
Yeah, I agree with
Separate
that.
motion on.
That seems separate, but otherwise, if we want to do this as a slate, Mary?
I just have a question. Since Brett's here, he may want to speak.
True.
Well, he's the one after.
Right.
H, so
Well, I
that's
just
why-
didn't know.
He's also sister city, so. Yeah. Which is
It's
H.
gonna be a long night for you.
Okay.
But I will just give, whenever I have a chance for Sister Cities, I'll give a quick thing. So obviously, in the last couple of years, we have not had the interactions that we had the previous 2 years. And the reason I would like to redo it is that, yeah, I was the first person to even apply for sister cities, and it took quite a few years to get 2 more people to apply. But we found a wonderful sister city, Santon, France. We've had great interactions. We hope to have start up again this year to have more interactions, bringing students over and sending students there. We've got, there are plans in the works. And the one thing about Santon, France that I want to put out, it is one of France's most diversified cities. And it's amazing because when we're there, all these communities come together, and you have to experience it, and hopefully, someday you will get a chance to do that. But I did want to give the plug for Sister Cities.
Thank you, Brad. Well, I'm willing to entertain a motion as a slate, but it's certainly going to be a long motion for whoever makes it, but perfectly willing to do so. Dan?
I'll make a motion to consider the reappointment of Alice, sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, Molesky, for a 3-year term on the Zoning Board of Adjustment beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025. Consider the reappointment of Stephen Lagasse for a 3-year term on Zoning Board of Adjustment beginning March 8th, 2022, ending March 7th, 2025. Consider the reappointment of Jonathan Schleichman to the Design Review Committee for a 3-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025. Consider the reappointment of Jeff Arnold to the Hartford Tree Board for a 3-year term beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025. Consider the reappointment of Pat Stark for a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission beginning March 8th, 2022, ending March 7th, 2025. And consider the reappointment of Brett Mayfield for a 3-year term on the Sister City Committee beginning March 8th, 2022 and ending March 7th, 2025.
Excellent.
I'd second.
We have a second from Ally. Any discussion? Excuse me. If not, then all opposed, say aye.
All in favor?
I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, and no opposed. Thank you, everyone. All right, so our last here on item the reappointments is we're going to consider the health officer also serving as the humane officer as defined in the Vermont state statute. And Brett Mayfield here to give us some.
Yeah. So I have sent out to some of you a little bit, and I've spoken to some of you, but I'll give a synopsis. So it's the health officers, because there are 2 health officers, my deputy here in town. Up till July of 2021, health officers have served as humane officers in the state of Vermont. Because many health officers in smaller towns, are not as active as the town of Hartford, and have not probably experienced things around animals. The legislature now only appoints actual humane societies under the law and police officers. Now, they do allow for select boards to appoint whoever they want as humane officers for their town. The reason that I feel it's important, one, both your current health officers have had training, and one is a veterinarian, and I have been member of 2 large humane and animal control organizations for many years, and handled a lot of cases here in the town of Hartford. And I think in the future, there are very good training programs at no cost for humane officers nationally. So, and the test is a minimal fee. So it's not something that couldn't be carried on under other health officers. The biggest thing that happens is that your health officers are really frontline people as police and fire. And we go into a lot of situations where not only families might be struggling, but animals are struggling too. And we've stepped in many a times. The police have actually called us to help come in. Humane officers can, for the safety of an animal, remove the animal. You're not taking it, you're simply removing it, putting it in a humane society, And then there are procedures for that owner to come in and remove their animal. Also, talking to officers, transportation, we've stepped in and transported because we don't have an in-town humane society. We have 2 in the region which need transportation. So we've also have trained in that and have transported to humane societies. So it would be simply an attachment, non-paid attachment to health officers also serving as humane officers. And you're welcome to ask questions.
Dan?
Does this require any sort of charter change? And I think the charter says that you can't hold 2 elected positions in the town of Hartford. So if you are on the health, if you're the health officer as well as the humane officer, how do we make that work?
Well, those aren't elected, so we're neither of us.
So
We're not elected. In fact, there was a little mistake when you sent my application. So you make a recommendation to the Commissioner of Public Health that a member of the town serves as the state of Vermont health officer for the town of Hartford. We are under the League of City and Towns. We are attached. We're those quasi non-employee employees. We are part of the town, but the state of Vermont, and they do the same under the statute for humane officers, take care of the liability. If you're, trying to remove an animal to save its life or something, of course, would be covered by the state of Vermont under the statute. So you're simply making another appointment to the health officers in their duties. So that's what that is.
Kim?
So just to clarify
Yep.
for myself, I think I understand what you just said, but so we are going to move to appoint you, not to recommend your appointment to the state for
No.
humane officer.
Yes, you have the authority
To-
as the select board. And I'm going to say this as a little education for something, and something I just learned. The mask mandates that the select board's been doing, the best is to do those. I looked at the other towns who made them as the town of Hartford Health Board, because they have a much broader platform for public health than you do as the select board. So but that's the same thing. You're simply making those health officers, humane officers under both the health and select board. It's one of the state positions that each select board or town can do on their own.
One thing I noticed, Brett, so just looking at the statutory site, I think it's actually 13 VSA 351 4B2, because there's a humane officer, you're either A, an enforcement officer,
right,
or B, you've received the required animal cruelty training, and you've been appointed by the select board.
Yeah.
So I think if someone wants to make the motion, I think it would be to essentially appoint the health officer to serve as humane officer under 13 VSA 351 4B2.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You both should be pluralized, health officers and humane officers.
Do we want to appoint both health
No.
officers?
Health officers, you don't appoint the health officer.
No, sorry, just pluralizing there.
Will they both be humane officers?
Oh, yes, it should be for the position. That way,
Okay.
people, whoever hold that position would get the training and continue that.
Okay, and currently you have the training that's required.
Both health officers
Okay,
are.
you both health
are trained
officers.
at this point.
So
Okay.
it should be plural then, right?
Yes, health officers.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to consider the health officers also serving as the humane officers as defined in the Vermont State Statute 13 VSA 35(1), Section 23, VSA and 13 VSA Section 4B2.
I think it's got, if we can do a friendly amendment or something, I think it's 13 VSA 351 4B2.
Oh, okay. for
I
retail.
just took a look to make sure that was correct. But otherwise, I think we got a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
Brad.
Brett, for adding another
Thank
thing.
you, Brett.
I know, Brett does a lot.
I'm just, I have spoken or notified a number of people about the mandate and given my opinion and the science and the local background. Do you need me to stay and answer any questions around that, or?
Kim?
I mean, if you're willing to, it's coming
Yep.
up pretty soon.
Yeah, it
Yep,
should be
I'll
there
do it.
pretty soon.
I'll just wait.
All right, well, we are ahead of schedule. So we're gonna take a break at 7:30 right now. It looks like it's 7:20. Do you
Let's keep going.
want to keep going?
We can keep going unless.
Everybody good with
Okay.
that? All right,
All right, y'all.
let's do it. Town managers reports.
Yeah, I just wanted to send a little shout out to our town clerk staff, both Lisa and Sherry, and our election workers for just doing another election and another COVID election. So I saw folks wiping down pens while I was there. I don't think that's going to go away, but hopefully we can have a little less COVID in 2022 for our election. We've talked about the website already tonight. The team at Revise, who's our contractor, has finished migrating our web pages over. We anticipate going live in 6 to 8 weeks. They do an internal quality control process. Then we all attend training and start to build the actual content in a way that we want to change, because there's probably going to be things that look funky or things that are missing. So please bear with us, because we're going to be doing all of that training and updating those pages. And we know that links are going to be broken or things are going to be missing, and we're going to just keep plugging away with updating the website. We're looking for high resolution photos for the site. So we set up a website, photos at hartford-vt.org. And we're hoping to get a broad swath of photos. We have a lot of the gorge and we have a lot of the falls, but we don't have a lot of the day-to-day folks that live and work and visit here. You have to own the photo and you have to give us permission to use it on the website. And we'll be pushing this out in social media over the next week or so, just to let people know that they can email their high-res photos as long as they own the photo, and we can use it on the website. And we're just going to keep plugging away with getting fresh photos on the website. So that's pretty exciting. It's going to be a lot easier for staff on the back end to update the website. Basically, if you can make a social media post, you can update the website. That's not the case with our current site. It's very tedious on the back end. What I've worked on a little bit is the 2022 upcoming board cycle meetings. So that's just a little preview of the next 5 meetings. And again, for those of you watching at home, for those of you on the board, they're tentative. We try to do a couple of things. We try to be cognizant of staff if something's not ready, or if they're actually going to end up being out of town and it's not important in that meeting, we might move it up or down. And we also might do some smoothing. So if we have a bunch of informational items and it looks like the agenda is getting longer and longer, we might take those informational items, if they're not timely, and move them to the next meeting or an earlier meeting. So you'll see next time we're together, we're looking at the third quarter fiscal year 2022 financial report. We'll probably have the charter committee appointments coming up. And we might have something about solar field preferred sites. The staff is also working on a series of 101s, or adding slides to any presentations that they do have, for those of you who are newer to the process. So understanding as each department director comes up, if it's just an informational item or they have the time and space to do a 101 on that. At the bottom, you see that in the past, we set the agenda 1 week prior to the meeting, and you can always email all of us and get that in. More time is always helpful, because again, we may be trying to manage the agendas and smooth them out, or we might have a bunch of stuff that really needs to come up. The agenda is released Thursday prior to the meeting. You all get that emailed out to you the moment it goes out to Valley News and the listserv. And the supporting documentation, also known as the packet, is emailed out by 3 p.m. on Friday. We've talked about in the past trying to get that to you earlier. Unfortunately, the consent items, especially the payment manifest, these are coming in pretty quickly. So right now, as I've talked to staff, we don't have a clear path forward on if we were able to get that packet out to you. It would also mean that we would have a couple of meetings that we maybe didn't have enough, so we would have a short period of time to give a longer period of time in the future. So it's something we're still exploring, but we really kind of get stuck on this consent agenda with the payment manifest. And finally, I know this is a lot of just logistical stuff. Board emails and the distribution list have been updated to reflect the new election. And a reminder, board members should use their @hartford-vt.org email for all select board related emails so we can maintain public records. Others should be aware that due to open meeting laws, the board must refrain from replying to the entire email chain. Just a friendly reminder for all of you as well. That's why sometimes most of the time, all of the time, you should see do not hit reply all. That does possibly trigger an open meeting law violation if we are discussing current business of the town. In terms of significant activities, you heard me lightly talk about this, but we did do some acting appointments for the police department. I think the ones you have in here are Sergeant Scott Moody promoted to the rank of Acting Lieutenant Support Services Commander, and Sergeant Connie Kelly to the rank of Acting Lieutenant Patrol Commander. Those are both long-term employees, great staff over there, and we're excited to give them those new titles. And you'll see that we swore in two new officers, Daniel Bennett and Christian Hernandez. They're beginning the police academy on the 21st, and we'll see them in about 4 months when they're done up there.
Okay.
And you'll just see from significant activities, a lot of just the day-to-day work. The only last thing I want to point out is our April vacation venture camp filled in within an hour of opening registration. We took 26 children to participate, and we have a total of 18 on the wait list. So we're really excited to be able to expand programming there. We continue to just be absolutely shocked and amazed at how quickly our camps fill up and how great the need is for our community. So many thanks to Scott Hausler and the team for just always hustling out those camps.
Okay, great.
Happy to entertain questions.
Thanks. So I already sent some other thoughts on agenda items. I've got 2 more. I can just email you those as well. But I wanted to see if there was, we had gotten another email, I think today, about just checking in on the concept of organized responding to inquiries from like ticketing system or some, is there any movement on that? Or is there...
I think we agreed that we would come back on the 22nd and it'd be in the town manager's report.
Great, okay, just wanted to follow up on that.
It was a busy town meeting cycle, and then we basically had to push this packet out to you all in just a couple of days after that town meeting day.
Thanks.
Tracy, is there any reason why, sorry, I'm sorry, thank you. Is there any reason why we should have access to email the select board at all, or can you save us from ourselves and just ban us from that so that we don't trigger the open meeting?
Unfortunately, you can trigger open meeting law just by typing in everybody's names and hitting send.
Sure.
Select board at hartford-vt.org. I use it a lot if I'm just pushing out a packet or whatever, and it does allow, it actually is part of that front page on the website where they can email you, that people can put in whatever they want, but that's actually when they hit submit form.
Yeah.
That is the email that is attached to that form.
Oh, I guess I just meant us individually, but that's okay. I'll just be careful. Sounds like it's a me problem, so I will work on it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I think we can move to board reports, motions, and ordinances. The first is the face covering rule reauthorization, and just a couple quick things. So that is set to expire at midnight. I asked Tracy beforehand, if the board is inclined not to reauthorize it, technically if we do nothing, it will disappear. If we wanted to do an affirmative motion just to let it expire, we could do that. And certainly there may be interest on the board in extending it. We would have to extend it for another 30 days based on the Vermont statute. And of course, the entire our entire authorization to extend face masks will end on April 30th, 2022. So with that, I'm happy to have discussion and see where board members are and what they think about reauthorizing the mask mandate or letting it expire at midnight.
I do have comments. I would love to hear from Brett. since
Oh,
he's here.
perfect. Yeah, Brett, please come on up.
I'll go back. I did, let's see, I believe on Friday, I believe it was Friday that I gave a report to one select board member. And then other people asked and I sent that to them. So I'll give you as of Friday, and I will give you as what I know of today. So as of Friday, the Upper Valley is in the whole, so it's a special little region that actually New Hampshire created for us, is in the lowest category of what would be positive cases. As most of you are aware, the governor has made a recommendation because there is no state emergency. So he made a recommendation that all masks should only be used by individuals who want to use them as of the 15th, and that includes schools, but they will make their own decisions. As of today, in the state of Vermont, there were only 45 new cases. Now, that doesn't mean there were 45 cases. There are cases now that are, minor colds and sometimes a little major cold, but normal virus type of situations. Hospitalization in Vermont is down, and even Dartmouth now is coming down. Now, Dartmouth is a hard one to look at, just so if anybody looks at it, because they're a huge catchment area. They'll take all of the state of Vermont and New Hampshire if needed. So it's not a good thing, but they are going down themselves. And Windsor County, I mean, we haven't had a case reported in Windsor County in over a week. So this is probably going to be the way it is. We hope forever, but it will, it's going to be there. And then one thing that I did put out, and then the sort of my boss, Commissioner of Public Health, Dr. Levine, put out today is that, it's great if you want to wear a mask, it certainly can help you, and that we should always be enthusiastic about those who do want to wear masks. And I think that's pretty much what I put out to everybody.
Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
Lanny, I think you had a-
What's the temperature of the board if we were to change this to say a face covering recommendation for those that have not been vaccinated to wear masks, and those that are fully vaccinated have a choice to wear masks? What's the temperature of the board on that?
Well, I can't speak for everyone. I think everyone knows it's recommended to wear it. I think I think we could.
I'd like to do away with them altogether, sir, but I'm just saying that if the favor of the board is that they're unsure, I would be willing to compromise and say recommended versus required. I personally would like to see it just go away altogether, but in order to try to fill the gap there, recommended is still fine by me.
Any thoughts, Ken?
I did my usual extremely informal poll of the business contacts that I frequent, mostly from my First Friday lists and things like that. And the definite majority, there were a few outliers, but the majority was masks optional. They were happy to try it out and see how we do without, and I'm very comfortable with that. I did, the more objections that I heard were primarily relating to, folks that still have young kids who can't be vaccinated yet, and that, I sympathize with that. But I also am kind of more inclined to just let the rule sunset, and then still, individual businesses, some will still require masks on their own, and I think that's they can still do that, right? Like if a
Yeah, I think
If a-
that's fine.
a shop or a yoga, whoever wants to require masks in their business, they can. But the general response that I got was, let's go to, so just for whatever that's worth, it was not a scientific poll, it was very informal.
Sure.
I probably heard back from less than 25, but between 20 and 25 in the business community.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Lanny, you got another
Yeah,
comment?
so I guess I'd like to make a motion.
And does anyone else?
I'll just say that I heard from a number of citizens privately as well, sort of in favor of letting this just lapse.
Okay,
Correct. So I'd like to make motion, sir, that the Hartford Select Board discontinue the face covering requirements for the town of Hartford, Vermont, effective immediately.
I second that.
Discussion.
Kim?
Can we just let it lapse at midnight? Like,
Oh,
is there any difference?
Yeah.
It just means less paperwork if we let it lapse.
Yeah, I guess the question is, do we just do nothing and move on our agenda and just let it expire?
No, just, okay, I will accept your friendly amendment.
Okay, so you'll withdraw your motion?
No, I'll accept your friendly amendment.
Or
To amend
We
it
don't
to
need a
expire.
motion, we don't need a motion at all if we don't do anything, then it will expire at midnight tonight.
I think we could move to let it expire
Okay.
if we wanted, if
Okay.
that's sort of a compromise. We move to just let it expire and and it just goes away. It'd been a-
I'll rescind my original motion and make a motion that we allow the face covering requirements to sunset at midnight.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it looks like it is unanimous. All right, thank you, everybody. And, I think that is a good step. It's hopefully reflective of, improved situation involving COVID in our area. All right, so
How about that break now?
what's that?
How about that break now?
I know.
The break?
You'd like it right now?
Yeah. Can we do that break?
Do we feel?
We have just Hannah for one thing.
Here.
It depends on, because I know that the town purchasing has like a PowerPoint associated with it. Do we want to just try and move through Hannah's agenda?
I
items?
suppose. See, this is the last time Hannah's here.
All right.
Get
Hannah.
on with it.
All right, so we're gonna hear from
All right.
Hannah about solid waste construction and demolition debris pile hauling, and then we will take a break after that. Floor is yours, Hannah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah Tyler. I'm the Director of Public Works. And coming back tonight to revisit the topic of the construction and demolition, which we refer to as C&D pile disposal at the solid waste facility. In October of 2021, we were notified by the state that we were currently in violation of our permit for the amount of C&D debris that we were holding on site, and for the amount of time that we were holding on to that. And we were essentially issued orders that we needed to remove that and mitigate and clean up the site. In November of 2021, we went through a bidding process through our purchasing policy, in which we were able to award a bid with a not to exceed amount to United Construction of New Hampshire. We estimated the amount of the pile based on what we believed was the contours of the ground underneath what was there. Unfortunately, there was a lot more there than we estimated. And we were clear during the bidding and award process that it was essentially impossible for us to estimate what was there. So we're here tonight asking for an amendment to the contract, essentially with United Construction, to cover the amount of material that we do believe is on site. I know that Tracy has been down there. They have actually removed and ground everything to what we believe is the old stump dump that's under the construction demolition pile. And we believe that we are at a place that we can bring the state in, show them the good work that we have done, and be in agreement of how we cap that. But right now, we're simply asking for a little, for more money, that we can haul the material over to Lebanon and pay all of the fees associated with that.
Thank you, Hannah. Lanny?
So So everything that's been chipped up is still sitting there? Okay, so in other words, we have to spend this money to bring us into a stage where we're compliant with Vermont state law, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. And how much more does United Construction or Public Works think there is there for material that needs to be chipped up at some point? Is there like the same amount still left, or?
No, at this point, we are confident that we've reached the bottom level of the construction and demolition debris. And that it is all ground. And we're at a place that we believe we've reached the lowest level. I don't know if I'm describing that well.
Yeah, because of the nature of the stump dump on top of, like, I mean, Hannah told me once that they actually drilled down in a different spot into, I think, 50 feet, and they were still pulling up random pieces of debris. So are we ever going to get to the absolute bottom of the original landfill / stump dump / where people used to just throw their stuff on the ground? Maybe, maybe not, but this is a good stopping point of where it's becoming evident that we're now hitting the stump dump, which was there before the C&B pile.
So all the money that was authorized before has been spent, correct?
Yes,
Without any hauling whatsoever.
that's correct.
Wow. Okay, my other question I guess I would have is, what fund is this going to come from?
You have that right there at,
So the proposal is that it'll come from the solid waste operating fund at this time. And then Public Works, the town manager's office will work with finance in the way that we always do to make that fund whole. So we have discussed earmarking some of the leftover funds from either, staffing deficiencies or material supply issues that weren't able to spend out of Fund 10 for the highway fund. That could supplement that. There have been discussions about using the landfill closure account, which certainly some of these items or some portion of this qualifies for. So we feel very strongly it is a hit.
So
We didn't really have a choice. We could have put the brakes on and fought with the state and started to incur legal fees and fines.
We tapped into a lot of funds though for next year's budget for funds that were not being used this year for salaries though. And are there still more funds that we can get from the budget that didn't get rolled into this next year? So I mean, we did roll a lot of money, leftovers that we thought going into this next budget. So I'm just wondering how you're going to find this precious nickel out there to pay for the rest of it.
all of these memos that have big money amounts go through the finance department as well for a review in terms of if this funding is reasonable and feasible. And they don't come forth to you unless that approval is given either verbally or in email. So we're booking it in the solid waste fund operating budget because that's where clearly when you're booking general ledger items, you need to book it into the line that is that line, right? We need to put it in the line that reflects what we're doing, which is contracted services for the solid waste fund. That fund currently has enough money to manage this amount, and then the internal transfers happen over the quarter. All of the money movement that we did was the unfunded balance for Q1 and Q2 of FY22. We still have Q3 and Q4 that we're looking at as well. And you're going to actually get the third quarter financial review next time we're together.
So can you just give me the line item number for that, please?
Oh, Kim has it right there. Thank you, Kim. I was going to have to open another window.
Because I have a question about that as well. So
Fund 50 something, right?
it's the third Fund 30.
Okay.
And it's 973,318.
973 what?
Right?
318 is the
That's-
contract, is contracted services. I'm gonna have to open up another window.
I didn't catch that. 973, what, Kim?
318.
318.
But unless, so, can I ask my question about that? Are you still like?
I just do want to make sure I get the right numbers. that's all.
Yeah, but because it relates, can I bounce over?
Yeah, go
back
ahead.
to you? Is that
Go ahead,
okay,
yeah.
Mr. Chair?
I'm all set.
That number that I just referenced is that's got 117,133 in the 23 budget for contracted services, specifically funds for removal of C&D per fiscal plan developed last year. So are those funds that are basically allocated for the 23 budget that we might have to expend in the 22 budget? I mean, like,
No, I'm trying to follow you. So I think what we're getting at again is we're having those conversations totally, that right now we need to deal with this now, right? Because the state is gonna show back up and be like, what is that pile of wood chips? Is that your C&D pile? We told you to get it out of here. We do have that in the 23 budget. There's funding in the 22 budget for this as well, and we need to take care of this now. If something comes up in the next 3.5 months where we're like, oh, we need to deal with this as well in fiscal year 22, we're gonna have to push that off to fiscal year 23 and access that money in the solid waste fund for additional contracted services. So what we're doing is we're saying, this is actually really urgent and we need to take care of it. So we're gonna have to use the FY22 money. And if in 3 weeks, Jeremy comes to me and is like, what about that cool thing we were gonna do for solid waste? We're gonna have to wait until the FY23 comes live.
I totally, I think I am following you.
Yeah.
I guess question is, so, because we're talking about an additional 118,815 in addition to the 77 that we've already spent, which is a total of 196,615. So I guess I'm wondering also, like, well, did we know about this earlier? So that's why it got put into the 23 budget at 117. Like, we must have known for a while that it was going to go over. Like, or do we think there was going to be an additional $100,000 worth of C&D as well?
So for a couple of years, I've been trying to put money into the budget to start tackling this
Yes, I
pile,
know
even
that.
if it was in small chunks.
Yeah.
So at the time that this situation came up, the budget was pretty much in its final iterations. So that money did remain. I think we still feel strongly it's important to kind of maintain that money in there. We don't really know what else might come up while we're working down there. There are some other areas within the area that's legally designated as the C&D landfill within our permit. I mean, they literally have it exactly mapped out within our permit that will need to be addressed. There's some piles of clean wood and brush that, I mean, we really have to start addressing cleaning up that facility. So it is my recommendation that, that money stay in that fund, in that exact line item to continue to do mitigation, capping. We're going to have to seed it, loam it, erosion control it. I mean, just hauling everything off site, unfortunately, doesn't fully mitigate the problem.
And I'll defer back to Lady if I can. I will have another comment.
Okay, I'm looking at FY 2022 budget, and that's what we're currently operating in, correct? Okay, and I'm looking at contracted services, which is 39,31,318. And can you tell me what we have left in that line item for contractor services?
Here's how this works internally, is I go to Gail and I say, Gail, I'm sending you a memo from Hannah about the C&D pile and the notice of violation. And it looks like she's going to need another 117 out of Fund 30. Can you confirm with me that we have the total amount out of Fund 30 to deal with this issue? And then she looks at her binders and she looks at the MuniSmart and she usually types on her, she uses an old fashioned adding machine. And then she says, yes, please go ahead. Or she says, no, we need to figure this out. So I don't know. I feel like that was a little bit of a trick question. I don't know. I do ask the finance director, are we okay to go?
I'm not trying to trick you or anything. I'm just trying to understand. It wasn't mean to put you on the spot or anything. All I'm trying to understand is how much whether we've got the money to spend still out of this contract of services, or just trying to determine where we're going to get the money. I understand that you're going to find it, but I'm just curious about where we're going to find it from.
Contracted services line item.
You haven't spent any money out of contracted services.
For that line
The
item.
other thing to consider too is that we're always looking at the bottom line. Those lines are not definitive. You can't cross them. You can move money within the solid waste fund at any time as well. So as you get the Q3 that you're going to see on the 22nd, you're going to see that glide path. For those of you who've been before, Gail runs that glide path of 25, 50, 75. So we are at a point in the year where we can say, we're good to go with the bottom line on solid waste, or we're not.
I have a few questions. This is pretty new to me. So if you just help me understand, if we approve this, is the town screwed or are we okay? We have the money, right?
Not quite the
Just to
term I
be-
would use.
Well, you know.
We do have the money.
Okay, so
We do have the money.
that's what I'm understanding. The other thing is the C&D waste per tonnage fee went up by $3 from $12. That's a 25% increase in 4 months. That strikes me as extortionary. I mean, can we just, do we have other options?
That's
It has-
Lebanon, isn't
It
it?
has to do with how their fee schedule works on just a different schedule than our fee schedule does.
The Lebanon landfill is basically the only game in town, and they are across the river in New Hampshire, and they're in a very good position to raise their rates in whatever way the market can bear.
Okay. What would it take for us to start our own? Okay, we're not going there. Okay. My last question is, if we don't cure this, is there an environmentally responsible way that whatever the penalty is from the state that would cost us less than $119,000? Or is this really just I mean, do we have no option but to vote for this? Because I'm not really sure what the alternatives are.
You could abstain, but I think that.
So it's either we do it
If we
or-
don't do this, we're gonna get in trouble with this.
Truthfully,
Okay.
the other alternative, so we were directed, we are not permitted to hold this material on site. So we entered into a bidding process in a manner that we felt was the most responsible in consulting with like I did meet with the Lebanon landfill, like what's the best way to do this? Because they have a C&D landfill and, you know, primarily the means and methods that people handle removing raw construction demolition debris from their transfer station, because that's what we are. We are not a permitted landfill. We are a transfer station. So that means we take stuff from the public and we get rid of it. We don't keep anything on site. So the most economical way to manage that is that it's ground. It's turned into a product that's more condensed, easier to haul, and it's hauled off site. The other manner of dealing with that is that it would be hauled off site raw. So right now, if we were to haul that off site raw, we would not only be paying trucking fees, we would then be paying, say, Lebanon for them to grind it and take care of it. All of our research indicated that it was much, much more inexpensive to hire someone to come in, grind it on site, because Lebanon, all they do, they don't grind it themselves. They hire United to come in and grind their material. So we'd kind of be paying for something twice. So the other option is that we can pay United Construction for the work that they have done, which is to grind the piles and accumulate it on site. And that the town could take the risk that they can go toe to toe with the state and say, we can't afford this. As I discussed with Tracy earlier, it would be a little bit of a bad look for the town to say, we willingly for years accepted a material that we charged people for, and we never kept enough money in our coffers to pay for it. That would kind of be kind of a rough look for us.
Thank you.
We have done initial investigations into finding funding sources. It's just,
Mary and then Kim.
Yeah, I just have a quick question and maybe I just missed something. Because in that paragraph above, it says, lastly, the state of Vermont now assesses a tax at $6 per ton or $28,290 that will also need to be paid. Is that separate from what we're paying? So that's in addition to.
Kim?
Couple things. One, just to comment, the unused salaries that were applied to the budget error thing only came from Hartford Police Department, not from Public Works. And also some of the workers' comp savings. I was just trying to find, anyway, I will come back on that later. And then I also had asked if, I mean, and Rocket, we can have a whole session on solid waste. Like, it's a huge, huge ongoing thing. And if there were any grant funds, like whether it was, state or federal, whether it was infrastructure, ARPA. I mean, this is literally like a hazardous environmental cleanup site that we're addressing. And it has been a long, long time coming, like many years before me. And many years beforehand now, for that matter, certainly Tracy. So this is like super long overdue to address, and it is possible. So there aren't any particular opportunities right now that could be sought in time to meet the state's requirements for our certification for our compliance. But it is possible, if I'm not mistaken, that there could be funding opportunities that could support the work of cleaning up the solid waste, the transfer station.
And someday, I mean, that's why we started to engage with consultants when we did the solid waste request for qualifications process.
Yeah.
That, as we started to go down this road with transitioning solid waste to whatever it looks like in 3 months or 6 months or a year, that we would rely on those professionals to kind of guide us through that. And these are the people that we selected as the top 3 respondents for that process. To be totally clear, is different than this process that we're talking about tonight. They are absolute subject matter experts in the state of Vermont who work with the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Agency of Natural Resources, specifically around solid waste. So as we kind of continue to move into that transition, that's where I would start to ask those people to assist us with locating funding sources like that.
Generally, I've been a little disappointed. The state, and this is something that I need to continue to work with our state reps on, is the state is very keen on funding certain things, but there is a hole here in realizing that we are one of many communities that have these historic dumps, basically, and are now left holding the bag of a pile of, I mean, when we say construction, demolition, Brewery, it was drywall and pressure treated wood and painted doors and screens. We're left holding the bag for this, and Vermont says clean it up, but there's not really a lot there for the down and dirty day-to-day work of mitigating these issues, and we are not the only ones dealing with this.
I appreciate both your comments on this. It's really helped me understand it better. And I want to be clear. I think that we should probably, it seems like the right thing to do, that we undertake this to clean this up. But we got to be clear that our neighbors in New Hampshire are extorting us. I mean, I think that's unbelievable. It's a $35,000 increase on this. With that said, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we approve this.
I think Lanny had one more comment.
Yeah,
Question.
yes, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the numbers here. So I was wrong in the fund that I quoted earlier. I believe that the correct fund to quote from would be 3971-318-000, which is contracted services. That is only looking at $44,000 that we allocated for this year. So for this year,
Neither one of us have our budget books, and I'm desperately trying to find mine, so it's a little difficult. Again, we try to.
I really want to make sure that I understand where this money's coming from. That's the thing that I'm bothered by here.
The appropriate line item
Yes,
that this would come out of is 30-973.
yeah, right, so 3, wait a minute, 73, okay,
-318-0000. It's the top line item for construction demolition.
okay.
For the current fiscal year, there were $0 approved for that line item.
Okay,
2021. 2021, there was 67,734, and 2020, there was 23,832.
there's,
And what we do is, again, those line items, we book them in there for the general code for transparency and accountability. However, we can move items within funds. So when you look at the bottom line of the solid waste fund total, that's what we're talking about. Is there enough money in the solid waste fund to pay for this? Because what we do is we even up as we move closer and closer to the end of the fiscal year. And we know more and more about what bills are coming due at the end of the fiscal year to say, okay, where are we in the totality of that fund? It's very similar to the fact that while we have 50 pages of general ledger code for the general fund, as we move closer and closer to the end of the fiscal year, we're evening up the general fund in its entirety, not necessarily within one line item. So for example, just taking my own office, we're a little high on overtime. We're moving money from things that we're low on. Maybe we didn't end up buying equipment or supplies that we're needing, or we're going to postpone that because we're going to true up overtime to move into the glide path.
I understand the moving the money, and I don't have an issue with that. I just don't see it there. But the other question I guess I had, when it says under the impact is listed here, it's $200 a trip for up to 64 trips at 12,800. And now they're saying that they're going to quote 115 trips for a total of 23,300. Do you know how many yards they're carrying over there in each trip?
I don't off the top of my head. They're standard 10-wheel dump trucks. So anywhere from.
So my
12
question is, $200 a trip, as Rocket said, is quite high. I mean, I'm just wondering if we could, I mean, we're not talking about carrying stone here. We're talking about chips. I'm just wondering if we couldn't employ our 10-wheeler with a pup trail behind it and save ourselves quite a bit of money off this $200 per trip. I know that we're paying a salary, and the time over there and back is probably 45 minutes, but I still got to believe there's some cost savings there if we were to do this ourselves. That seems like an exorbitant rate.
I'd like to sort of add to that, but just say that I really trust that you guys have done your jobs and much better than certainly we have, you know, with respect to the research here. So I would.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
Hannah,
yeah.
did you want to answer, Lanny, or are we good?
We look at all of this.
You look at all of
It's
it.
not more cost effective when it comes to staffing.
At the end of the day, if we were to dedicate staff to make that many trips, it's other standard maintenance that's not happening around town that we're dedicating, especially with the number of new hires we have who don't have CDLs. It's really kind of monopolizing those few staff members' times. And it is something that Jeremy and Tracy and I discussed at length. And the decision was made to stick with the United's price for hauling for their original contract.
I just think it's a lot of money for right here towards the end of the year to come up with, but I trust Gail is going to be able to do it, so.
I'm willing to entertain a motion if.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve. I move to approve an exception to section 3.6 of the purchasing policies of the town can enter into contract with United Construction Corporation for the hauling and associated taxes and fees of the process, construction, and demolition debris estimated at $118,815.
Okay, well, I have a second.
Second.
Ally seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute, discussion.
Oh,
please.
okay, discussion. Just, sorry, Lanny.
Yeah, discussion estimated, can we put not to exceed? Would you accept a friendly amendment to not to exceed $118,815?
I would rather trust the discretion, I think personally, of them. I mean, I think everyone's doing the best they can in this situation. So if we have to re-entertain it because it ends up being 119,000 round, I just feel
Well,
like a lot of work for us.
An estimate, you could be off by quite a bit, just an estimate. I'm not, would they be willing to
We
lock
don't
that
wanna- I
price
don't
in
think
for
we
us?
want to move to pay for it and then come up short, you know? mean, that's just a.
Some of it
question.
stays there, load stays there,
Uh,
you know?
I don't see any, we have a motion on the table, right? I mean,
Lanny, I appreciate the spirit of what you're saying, but for myself personally, I just think like, I would love to just trust them to do their jobs well, at their discretion and.
You know, I just don't see as estimates being a good way to throw money out there. We should have a definitive number, not an estimate.
That's
But
true.
When we say an estimate, that you got taxpayers out there right now. Okay, I'm estimating your tax bill at being $50, but guess what? You're gonna be $100.
So
Okay,
Lanny,
that's
I
not fair.
agree with you completely, but I think the unfortunate position, it sounds like that we're all in, is that we kind of have, we just have to pay whatever. That's why I'm upset that they're charging this gigantic rate increase.
I don't think we have a definitive number right now.
Yeah.
Is that right? And I think we need to approve this or vote against it if you're not in
Well,
favor.
I don't
So
mind-
I would just move with Rocket's motion.
I don't have a problem with paying a set dollar amount, but I am firmly against paying an estimated number. I will definitely vote
We won't
not
pay,
exceeding 118.
But
we'll
here's
end
the-
up getting the actual, I think, cost of it, right? And then we'll pay what that amount is. I just don't know what saying not to exceed really does in this particular thing, because we do need to move it and haul it away. If there are additional costs in this that we need to approve later, I think we probably would. So I just don't know. I mean, I would move ahead with Rocket's motion.
Where are you gonna stop it at though? Okay, we got 120 into it, we got 125 into it. Well, we only estimated 18, but where's the stop come?
But
That's the
Lanny, so
problem I
Lanny,
have.
you're right, but what other
Yeah.
options do we have if they raise their?
Mr. Chair, can we take a vote on this, please?
Oh,
We have
Yeah.
a second, right?
so I move to approve.
Wait, is there a
Ally
second?
seconded.
I seconded, yeah.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay,
Okay, so that is 6-1 with Lanny opposing, and we were going to take a short break after this. So I would say let's come back and make it 10 or 11 after.
so you go.
Sitting on Rocket, and then we'll. take this back.
Jettison.
Are you gonna do like
Carry
one,
the metaphor.
one pun a meeting?
Mary, you never want to be the last one back from the bathroom, because then we all kind of.
All right. Got everybody back, so we'll get back to business, the Hartford Select Board. Our next item is introduction to town purchasing.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you all. So I'm a presenter, so hopefully it will come up. Just a second. All right, good evening, you guys. Let's see what this means. Please move this window away. I don't know what you mean. Stop. Minimize all that. All right, there we go. Oh, okay, good evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about the purchasing policy. You'll see that this is item 5C. And then in item 5D, there's approval of the full purchasing policy. But first, we're going to do just a little bit of an overview. So why do we have a purchasing policy? Our purchasing policy first and foremost ensures adequate internal controls. You're going to hear Gail Ostrout and I talk about internal controls. Always happy to talk more about them. That was my bread and butter for almost a decade. And that's something that's really important to us because overall internal controls aim to mitigate the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse of public funds. So it also, the purchasing policy provides for a transparent process for authorizing purchases and awarding contracts. Back in the day, we didn't always have, as local governments, transparent processes for authorizing purchases and awarding contracts. And that led to the good old boys club or the good old select board club where there was no real criteria for why and who we purchased from. And there was no checks and balances on approval levels. So it's a good thing. This one has a lot of writing. Sorry about that. Again, I love internal controls, but they're generally you'll see up here, the mechanisms, rules, and procedures implemented by a company. We can change that to organization to ensure the integrity of financial and accounting information, promote accountability, and prevent fraud. I like to add waste and abuse in there as well. Besides complying with laws and regulations, preventing employees from stealing assets or committing fraud, internal controls help improve operational efficiency by improving the accuracy and timeliness of our financial reporting. Here's two pieces of fun fact to remember. Software controls rely on people-driven processes. Hard controls are automated processes. So a soft control is something that is a visual check, is that little check mark next to the pencil as you might go down your list of things to do. A hard control is you can't click the button if you didn't enter all the fields, or you can't click the button if you don't have that level of authority in the system. Hard controls are always better. People make human errors. So here's our purchasing process, our purchasing policy. We have a number of thresholds, so bear with me. If the purchase is under $500, the person is not required to make a purchase order. They can solely use the invoice or the receipt or whatever they use to get proof of their purchase. The department head approves prior to purchase. That can be a verbal approval, an email approval. The department head can delegate that approval to their assistant director. So for larger departments, you might see 2 people who have this authority. And when it's processed, you code it with your general ledger code, you sign the bill, okay to pay, and it goes off into the system and gets paid. If the purchase is between $501 and $4,000, it's entered into MuniSmart with the general ledger code for a purchase order number. So let's say we're buying something for $1,500, we're going to get a purchase order for that. And we're going to attach that purchase order number to the purchase and put it into MuniSmart with the general ledger code. It has to be approved by the department head prior to purchase. At this point, we go with email approvals over verbal approvals. Finance reviews it for accuracy and completeness. Did it meet all of the criteria? Is it coded correctly? Does it have a purchase order? So does that mean that it was approved by the department head prior to purchase? And the invoice is connected to the purchase order, and that all lives in MuniSmart as the supporting documentation for that purchase. Now we're in the big guns. If it's over $4,000 up to $20,000, again, that whole process with the purchase order and the MuniSmart entering with the general ledger code happens. The purchase order, so prior to purchase, must be approved by the department head, the town manager, and the finance director. The purchase order must be supported by 3 quotes and must have a clear recommendation for a selected vendor. So let's use it as an example. We are recarpeting this room. We need to get 3 quotes from companies and let them bid on that. We need to then request a purchase order with a clear recommendation for the selected vendor. We'd like to go with ABC Carpet because they are the lowest bid. Let's say that ABC Carpet is not the lowest bid. It's the second lowest bid, but they offer a more comprehensive stain guarantee, and we think that would be a great thing. We can make that recommendation for that selected vendor. It then gets routed typically by email, sometimes by hard copy, to the department head, to myself and the finance director, who all sign off. And then it gets logged into MuniSmart and you're able to make your purchase. Now we're at the really big guns. Anything over $20,000 requires competitive sealed bidding or competitive sealed proposals. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's why you see what you see come to you when you see it. If you see anything at 20,000 or below, it's handled internally with our current process. Sealed bids and proposals, also called RFPs or RFQs, for requests for proposals or requests for qualifications. We have to public notice these. So part of the back end request that you don't see is drafting the RFP, reviewing the RFP. What exactly do we want to ask people for? Then we notice it publicly. Technically, we only have to put it in the newspaper. We send it out to a lot more folks than that. We have email lists and we put it up in a variety of other public locations. There's also, for especially larger purchases for some of our bigger departments, there are pools that you can push out to say, you know, the town of Hartford is submitting an RFP. They come sealed to my office. We don't even open them. We stamp the outside of the envelope and log that we got that envelope and what time. And it's serious. If we say that bids are accepted until 5 p.m. on October 4th, if it's not there at 5 p.m., we do not accept it. So it's a very strict process in terms of the bids coming in and who logs them in, and we don't open them, and they better come in when they come in. They're opened at a specific time and place in public. For the smaller bids, that's my office's open space. For some of these larger bids, you all just saw South Main Street. We actually went into room 2. And everyone, it's open to the public. People can come and watch the bid opening if that's your jam. Or if you are an interested party, say your RFP is sitting in that pile, you are welcome to come and observe the opening. And they open the sealed envelopes and they log them all in. ABC Carpeting, what time and date it all came in, and they use specific award criteria as well. So they're also logging in the best final amount, whether it's complete and accurate. You've heard Hannah and or Jeremy talk about incomplete bids. So there's specific requirements in that RFP that they provide us specific documents. If those are not in there, we have to disallow that bid. We cannot reach out to that company and say, oops, so sorry, you forgot to submit your certificate of insurance. We have to disallow it. The bid award recommendation comes to the select board, and that is the final approval. So usually as quickly as we can, because we do want to remain responsive to our contractors or our potential contractors. We try to time these RFPs to be able to then make a quick turnaround to a select board packet. Not, it would be disingenuous to have had an RFP open today, knowing that we don't have a select board meeting for 2 weeks. So somebody could be excited about that bid, be hoping that they get that bid, and we ask them to wait for 2 weeks for a bid award. So we try to be cognizant of the schedule. Okay, so there are a couple of ways that we can waiver. You all just did waiver. Rocket got to waiver section 3.6 of the purchasing policy just now. I can waive for the 3 quotes for 4 to 20. So let's talk about that a little bit. We're in a small area. There are limited numbers of vendors. For some specialty services, there simply aren't 3 people that perform that service in the area. At that point, what we do is we have a conversation with the director or the assistant director. They usually give me a ring and say they've tried their best, but they've only got 2, and they send me an email, and I waive section 3.5 of the purchasing policy. We've had a few instances where people just aren't calling us back. We need a tree removed, and we've called everybody, and we've called them 3 times, and they aren't coming back to us. We need to get that tree removed. We'll also waive that. A waiver that I did today is that gas and diesel are jumping through the roof, and we need to just fill up our tanks before it gets worse. And I said, yes, this is important. Please don't try to compare gas and diesel prices. You keep good track of this. If this is the lowest price out there, please do this quickly before it continues to raise. We don't want to rest on this and cost more money. For over $20,000, the select board can waive with a vote in a public meeting. Again, you all do that in a public meeting, so that way it is transparent to the public why you're waiving, who you're waiving, and all of the details in that. We don't want anybody to say that someone is awarded a contract because they're someone's cousin, because they're someone's brother, because they are affiliated with any one of you, any one of me, or any one of the staff in any way. All right, so this is just kind of our remember, you can see this is a repeat of the first slide. The purchasing policy ensures adequate controls to mitigate the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse of public funds. And it provides a transparent process for authorizing purchases and awarding contracts. I'm happy to entertain questions. We can go over the purchasing policy now or in our next item. Or, whatever you all need. I'm just glad to take this opportunity to share with you why we do what we do.
Thank you, Tracy. Lanny?
Yeah, throughout all your slides, the one thing I didn't see that's missing is the step for it to go to the environmental sustainability coordinator. So he wasn't listed on there at all.
Yeah, so that is a portion, and you're right, it's a new portion. You haven't approved the purchasing policy yet, so that's something new that we'll be starting off once you approve that purchasing policy tonight.
If that's our next item, isn't it?
That is your next
right?
item.
So this is current.
This is currently what we were doing at 2 p.m. today.
Okay.
What we do at 2 p.m. tomorrow will be slightly different if you all choose to pass the full purchasing policy tonight.
Should we move just to the purchasing policy?
Okay.
Okay.
Wait a minute, though. You haven't presented the new policy to us, so how can we move it?
No, I said move to the next agenda
yeah,
item.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
presenting it.
Okay, I didn't quite understand you.
Kim?
When and we do have a hand up also before we go.
Okay.
When the general ledger code is applied to a purchase order or anything, does that ever change based on what, like, we've been just talking about changing direction,
Totally. We never change where we booked a cost.
okay.
We change where we still have funds available.
So if we used up all the funds to one code that we thought we were gonna take this expense out of,
We,
like, I guess I'm asking, does the department head or the employee do that, or does Gail change the code?
the finance director and the town manager are the ones that are authorized to do those internal movements. A lot of times the department heads will say, this is what I see coming down the pipe. This is what's going on in my department. I would like to move these codes. I would like to move these funds within these codes. And that's always very, very helpful, but it's reviewed by both of us. And we may offer suggestions, especially if it crosses departments. So we look at the town and the general fund as a whole. So we might move within departments, and that's a conversation with all of the departments that are affected.
Makes sense. And is Municode, I'm getting my tour on Thursday, but is Municode something that various department heads and staff members enter into? Or is it only, so basically?
MuniSmart has a variety of authorizations, like any good system. So different people have different levels of authority to both enter and approve. So someone who has an entry level approval in, we're just going to start throwing out, in the town clerk's office cannot book a expense for the fire department. They don't have authority for those codes.
Okay.
They have authority for their codes up to their limit. So there are other approval limits, right? So someone might send it in and it might get approved at level, I forget if it's 1.2 or 2.1, level 1, and then it has to go up to that next level of approval. So, somebody can type it in, hit approved, and it pops into another queue with waiting for that next level of approval.
Okay. And when the RFP is publicly open, and you said that like the information is logged, where does that go?
We maintain it. We make sure that the departments are taking care of it, or that we maintain it, and it does go into my files, and then it goes to finance ultimately, or do we keep it? We just keep it. We let
It's like
finance know that we
physical,
have it.
it's not digital in any way.
Right now, they're still physical.
And there's a hand up when you're ready.
Mary?
Just a quick question. When you have those like 3 bids, when you were talking about the numbers in the beginning, and you go with the lowest bid, is there ever a time when you're in the process and you learn something about one of the companies that has made a bid and it's the lowest one, but you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable about this information?
That can be documented usually in an email. At that point, we're not writing separate emails. We're just doing a group email to say, ABC Carpet is the lowest bid, but it's come to my attention that they have defaulted on their last 3 jobs. I have some concerns about this. I'd like to go with 1, 2, 3 Carpets as the lowest responsive bidder, because I feel like customer service is, important, or we have a deadline, or there's a variety of reasons why someone might make a judgment call on that. And we either just say, that sounds like a reasonable explanation, or you pick up the phone or walk over and say, okay, so talk to me about what's really going on here.
Thank you.
And do we have a question or comment from the
Hand
public?
up.
Okay.
Can you let Mike over, please, Lauren? Mike, you could unmute and go ahead.
There, I think I got it. You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mike Morris, Hartford. Question, I was going to ask the question, what was the previous policy? The one that we're looking at right now is the previous policy that we've been using. Is that correct before I ask my question?
I believe the one in the PowerPoint is the current policy, and in the packet is that the proposed.
That is the
updated
proposed
policy.
that has the 2 different additions that you all have approved at prior meetings. It's a little convoluted. You approve the language and then we come back and approve the whole purchasing policy.
Yeah, so in the agenda, that looks like the one we're going to possibly approve in our next, well, when we proceed to that. And the one that Tracy was referencing in the PowerPoint was the current as of today.
Okay. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Well, what was the previous one before? I thought we had a limit of 7,500 before we put it out to bid, number one, but on this presentation at the top, it says revised 3/9/22 and 3/8/22 on the thing. That's what was confusing me about which policy this is. So
Yep.
have we basically almost tripled the amount that we're gonna do before we have a bid? Is that what it means? 20,000?
I don't understand.
Previous policy wasn't a $7,500 limit before we put it out to bid?
Not in version 3. I'd have to look back
Okay.
historically to version 2, which is the previous version and the live version.
But our current one is 20 before it goes to bid.
Yes.
Or 20. Oh,
Okay.
Out to a competitive sealed bid or proposal versus 3 quotes.
Okay, but this one you're showing me is the new proposed one.
The
Correct?
PDF in the board packet is the new proposed one.
Okay. Thank you. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Ally?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember back from our last regular meeting when we were talking about, which I know are now reflected in here, the revisions based on the climate action plan and carbon emissions. And I remember, I think we were saying that maybe in your significant, like your town manager report, or that might be the place in which there are updates about the purchasing, that aspect of the purchasing policy and how it's going. So I guess my question is, if we get to one of those updates and you and Dana are feeling like, oh, we see like a big kind of revision that maybe needs to happen in the purchasing policy, would that mean that we would need to go through this process again and do, just so that we all know, revise, and approve whatever that might be related to climate action goals, and then go back and approve the whole purchasing policy like we're doing right now?
Yeah, if we see
Okay.
something and we're having a conversation, all of us, and we notice that this just isn't working for whatever reason, then it would be approving that language and then approving the policy, which, does take time, but also is just part of the process of having such a robust purchasing policy.
Would it be helpful, Tracy, maybe just to review the new items that we had approved before, but are going to approve now? I think section 3.9 and section 3.5 are basically any changes that are in the revised version before us.
Totally. So you want to move on to, are we
I
good?
think we can move on to that
To-
agenda item to
to-
consider the changes.
5D, okay,
Yep.
so we have made two minor changes, two changes to the purchasing policy over the last little bit. And you are right, I'm just scrolling these down. So we were here 2 weeks ago and we updated, let me find my board memo for you all. We updated section 3.5A to evaluate the environmental impact of purchasing. We also added definitions for emissions and updated the introduction. And then in 2021, we updated section 3.9 to address federal awards. So those are the three areas that we updated. Section 3.9 is based on some feedback from some state auditors that we did an audit with, just to provide clarity and additional information about accepting a federal award with provisions for allowable costs. So it's a little bit of legalese, and you can see we did that back in September. And then we have the update to the introduction, just to respond to, we like to tell people what's in here. So we made sure that had reflected the climate action plan. In the section 2.0, we added those definitions to the bottom of the definition section. And then we have section 3.5A about newer replacement equipment over 401,000 that is directly dependent on fossil fuels. If you all approve this tonight, we go back in and we make it pretty. We check all the formatting and the fonts, and we make sure that the spelling's great, and we check all the margins. We spend a little bit of time, but we don't spend a ton of time on things that haven't been fully approved, because we wait to know that we're finalized, and then we make it all nice and put it in a PDF.
Any discussion about the purchase policy, Ken?
I just wanted to figure, thanks for answering all my questions that I had and clarifying a number of things for me earlier. I think one thing I would want to just kind of like re-emphasize is that when we are looking at the climate action plan implementation plan, that we may want to revisit this again at that time, and that to also kind of request that we look at applying this purchase policy to, I think we talked about maybe 10 major purchases from fiscal year 21 in order to just see how they would have shaken down.
That is on Dana's radar after he spoke with you all a couple of weeks ago. I know that he's learning his way about Muni Smart, but he's muddling through as he can. I think we'll have that update for you in the coming weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Lenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tracy spoke last week about the impact this might have upon areas of like fire and DPW. I was wondering if you reached out to fire DPW to see if this would have any impact on them being able to fulfill their mission with it, because it has to go through the environmental sustainability coordinator.
So I think one of the things that we're doing really well on is growing our collaborative process internally. So Dana is pretty embedded in all of these departments. He's out with them almost on a weekly basis, all of the major departments, and he has run this by them, knowing that this is actually part of the resolution that you all passed. So we need to do this. The select board has decreed this, so we will make this happen. And we, as always, will adjust our own internal work processes to make this happen. So if that means that invoices and the purchasing process needs to happen a little sooner, that's what needs to happen to comply with the directive of the select board in that resolution. But everybody is fine with this, and they know that this is what has been asked of them, and they will do it.
I guess what concerns me is that just for instance, say our grader goes tomorrow, okay, and with mud season coming, we need the grader a lot. So we want to go out, and if our grader completely dies and we have to replace it, so we go out and look for a new grader, all right, and we pick out the one we want, or Public Works picks out what they're looking at, and they bring that back to Dana. Dana says, no, give me 3 or 4 weeks to try to find one that's more environmentally friendly. Well, we don't have that time element to allow us to do that. Yes, we can go rent a piece of equipment, but there has to be a time frame involved in this, I think, that to be held up by the environmental sustainability coordinator. If he looks at it and tries to say, okay, I'm going to go out there and see if I can find something that's a little bit more climate friendly for a piece of equipment.
I think that is not how the staff works together on a day-to-day basis. So let's tease out this idea of the grader blows. You're going to see Public Works in his office saying the grader blew. We need to buy a new one. We're going to have to fill out this form. What do you think? And we need to deal with this on Friday. He's not going to hold up the process in isolation because we work collaboratively. So this is not a do or die. That's why, and I know that there was some feedback about consider, feasible, and reasonable. Those are the words that allow us to have the flexibility to have those conversations as town leadership to say, what is actually the greater good? What is the most important thing going forward? And in those cases, it would be, we need to purchase a piece of equipment that keeps the health and safety of the community in a timely manner, and we don't have 3 to 4 weeks. So there's not a lot of gatekeeping in that way in between the staff, and that's just not how they work.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if we are in need of a piece of equipment to support the services of our employees to provide those services to town Hartford, that this will not hold up that policy. And there must be a way that And I don't know Dana for anything, so if he was to say no, I don't think we could go that way. There's got to be a way to say, look, we got to do this. I mean, can he be bypassed, or can he be overridden by you or by us, or how does that work? If the public works director says, no, this is what I want this, and this is what I gotta have, and Dana says, no, it's not working for me, what's his course of action then to come to you or to us?
Ultimately, I manage the day-to-day operations, and people can step in my office and we can have a conversation, but ultimately all authority lies with me.
Okay, all right, I'm just concerned about us, again, being able to provide services.
I think I would just add that if it's a piece of equipment to the extent of a grader, it's gonna be over $20,000 and would need to come before us for approval anyway. So, you know, if the department head wants to come before us and make the case for, they have these options for that large purchase that is an emergency because it wasn't in the plan, they need to come before us anyway.
Tracy, is that correct? That's correct.
Yeah, because we would be following the major tenets of the purchasing policy, right? If it's over $20,000, I cannot sign off on it, and the auditors will be looking for those authorizations in board minutes.
Okay. All right, more discussion or a motion? Ally?
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approve version 4 of the town purchasing policy.
Second.
Dan, second. Discussion?
So so is this, as it stands, what's classified as a living document, or, I mean, it has a flexibility to be adjusted?
Like Ally asked earlier, any changes to the purchasing policy need to be approved by the board, and then typically for checks and balances, we approve the entirety of the purchasing policy again. So it's not a living document in that we cannot unilaterally as staff change the purchasing policy. It needs to be brought forth to the board.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Then it looks like we will hear from HCORI. John, come on up and.
I was like, not me.
I thought there would be a introduction to the topic, but
If someone here would like to give an introduction, they are perfectly welcome to.
I'm happy to.
Sure.
So we, HCORI has had technically they're unofficial members, but so the conversation tonight is to just discuss in the school board, because we are a joint committee, we'll be discussing this as well, is formally including 2 high school liaisons for HCORI as part of the formal constitution of that committee and to be voting members. So right now we have 2 wonderful high school students who are, again, kind of filling that role, and attending meetings consistently, but not necessarily as voting members. And so I reached out to Dan, who was chair at the time, and Joe, vice chair, and then to our town manager about if there was any guidance from VLCT about having, a person who is a minor under the age of 18 on a town committee, if that's any sort of liability or legal concern that we should be wary of. And it seems like that is not the case as per our charter and other documents and policies we have in place. So HCORI, I think, just wants to both get some feedback from the select board and the school board on that idea, and potentially changing the constitution accordingly should both boards approve that.
thank you, brilliant. So John Hall, resident of White River Junction, and I'm the current chair of the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion. Welcome new board members, and thank you for continuing board members. Your service is highly appreciated. I think Ali explained it pretty thoroughly. Maybe I'll just give some background. Since the summer of 2021, we've had at least 1 student attending almost every meeting. Some at times multiple students, but always one student. So there has been interest, basically following the George Floyd murder, that moment of our kind of nation's collective, what do we do about this, up to now. And that this past school year, the start of this past school year, that expanded to a student equity club, that the student who has most consistently attended our committee started at Hartford High School with a sponsorship of one of the teachers and the support of the district equity coordinator. And from that, we were actually, another student was recommended to us to be one of 2 student liaisons between the committee and essentially the high school, but basically this student equity club that is open to all and very active. And so we on the committee thought we should, as Ali said, formalize their role and give them a chance to make a deeper contribution by actually being able to vote and move on the different issues we discuss and have a voice in the recommendations that we bring to the board. We were all ready to make a recommendation for a change to our charge to both the boards when someone pointed out, oh, is this legal? Because actually there are some towns in Vermont that specifically call out that students appointed to boards cannot vote. So we just wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case in Hartford. So there were 2 purposes to me standing up here tonight. One was to ask the board, but more specifically the town manager, if there is any legal reason why we shouldn't make that recommendation. And the other was to, as they say, take the temperature of the board, see if the board would find it acceptable to have student liaisons who can vote on one of their committees.
Thank you, John. Tracy, do we have any update, at least on the legality of having a voting school?
There is no indication, there is no, we're gonna get a little funky, but I know we got enough lawyers in the room to talk about it this way. There is no written word that disallows students to have a voting thing. Like many things in Vermont, there's no actual clear language saying yes, but there is no language saying no. We tend to go with, if there's nothing saying no, then we're okay for a yes. We could dig into that a little bit further, but that's the extent of the free advice that we have from VLCT.
Thank you. And any comment? I'm sorry, Dan and Ken?
Just a question to consider. It just been brought up for other committees. Would this student have to be a Hartford resident or could it be a tuition student? And if that student moved during the school year, would they stay on the committee for the remainder of the year? Just to consider to throw out there. We don't need to answer that now, but it's just something to consider as you move forward.
Yeah, thank you. I will take that to the committee.
Okay. Kim?
I mean, particularly because it is a very specifically joint school board and select board committee. I mean, I'm definitely in support of this in general. I guess I'm wondering, has H4 gone before the school board about this yet, or has the school board had any feedback yet?
No, yeah, we've sent the same question to the school board, but it hasn't come up on their agenda yet.
Okay, because I think, I mean, I would probably almost just defer. I don't know if, like, I know there had been, I don't even know if are there still student liaisons to the school board, but they're not voting members.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, I think I would be in full support of the concept, and I would probably defer to the school board's maybe more expertise in the field.
And I'd have to check their agenda for, I believe, tomorrow night, but I think we sort of tried to time it, and Russ was helping us liaise on that side of it to have the discussions this week. So select board discussion tonight, school, I'm hoping it's on the school board agenda tomorrow, so that if there is kind of joint agreement, then we can move forward.
Wayne?
Yeah, I don't know how comfortable I am with this. and this is why. You're talking about a student in the school system and a teen. And they're very adaptable to pressures that come on them in society. And I just really question the ability of a teen in a school setting being able to make a choice that's totally based on their own knowledge and how much knowledge they've tried to go out and seek out and actually get. I just think teens are very impressionable, and it worries me in a way that you can have a teen on the council or on this board, an impressionable teen, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just say like, hey man, I'll give you $50 if you vote this way, kind of thing. That I'm not saying this happens at all. So that's just I just don't think they're capable at that age to make a choice that's of their own free will without outside pressures that come onto them from society. I mean, teens as we all know, teens under a tremendous amount of pressure from social media and from school and from the way the world at large. And I'm not quite sold on that idea yet. You need
Lenny,
to
can I
convince me
tease
more.
that out a little bit?
Yeah, please.
I think everything you're saying is true. I wonder, in terms of the committee itself, what are your fears in terms of how that would play out negatively within the committee?
If a voting right is given to a member of that committee, if they have peer pressure, kids talk, okay? And this person you're going to put on this committee has other friends within the school system, all right? And if they get, say, bullied or intimidated to go one way or the other, that bothers me that ability is there. And if it's of a student's own volition of what they're doing, I just think it's a very slippery slope when we allow things to take place like that in an environment that has so much influential pressure on them from outside people.
May I try responding to
Ally and then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lenny. I mean, I would, and again, always like anyone, please come to an HCORN meeting, but I would encourage, if you have that concern to meet these students. I will say I've been like blown away with the amount of honestly expertise, like some of the ways in which they are talking about and thinking about racial equity and inclusion teach me things. And the ways that they, I think, are leaders in their school communities. And these two students in particular, and not that it's just about these two students in this moment, but students we might, if this were to be approved, include in the future. These are students that Hartford School District's equity coordinator kind of specifically knows and kind of helped bring to HCORI. So I also think that, just like any, adult community member would have to, submit an application and go before the board, I would imagine that would be the same process for a student who would be up for consideration as a voting member. So there would be a vetting process to, ensure that that student or those students are ready for the task and that they know what the role is and take it seriously. And I can say with complete confidence that the two students we've been working with so far, again, really blow me away in terms of how headstrong and confident and capable they are. As capable as I think any adults are. So I would feel confident that we could, with the process we have for applications, kind of allay some of those concerns and, still make sure it's a thorough application process to maybe mitigate some of those concerns. But from who I know and those students, we feel really confident in their votes and for them to be informed voters as part of that committee.
Rocket?
Before I make my statement, point of clarification, the purpose of this committee is to have conversations around equity, inclusion, and race, and topics of the like, and then to make policy recommendations to the select board. Is that correct? So the outcomes of their votes are really to whether to make determinations to bring to the select board for a final policy determination. So with all that, understanding that, I would say, Lanny, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I've spent more of my life as a minor than I have as an adult at this point. And I've definitely been through a lot of periods where I feel like I look back and I say, oh, that's pretty impressionable. And I was definitely influenced by different people in my life that I looked up to, or even peer pressure. So I know what you're saying. At the same time, I went to the Putney School, which is just south of here on 91. And one of the interesting things they offer students is to be full voting members of various boards, including the Board of Trustees. And there is a part of me that's like, wow, I mean, and I sat on that, and there's a part of me that thinks, well, that was incredibly irresponsible of them to give me a seat. And at the same time, it was very empowering. It was very educational, and it did make a meaningful difference in the way that I felt like I could engage, which was that you have an equal voice at that table. And so I think that there's something very valuable about that. And I do think that there is a competency amongst youth that we should entrust. We do, after all, have a voting age of 18. So there are high school seniors that can vote. But now, a question I do have, this is sort of playing the devil's advocate here, because I don't know these students, and I'll just take your word, because why not? That they're highly competent, very passionate, clearly passionate. About the sustainability of it, if we go through this process of creating these positions for students, and then what happens if that energy fizzles out? Do we just need to rewrite the charter to say no more student votes? Or what do we do then in terms of sustaining that passion amongst the student body? Just wondering if you thought through that. But as far as and then my last thing is here, as far as worst outcome goes in terms of let's say these students come on and they're being bullied or peer pressured into something. I mean, there's 7 other adults on the board, citizens, adults, and I feel very comfortable with that personally.
Yeah, it seemed to be what I was hearing, Lenny, was not so much that within the committee they would be pressured, but back at school, if a particular hot button issue came up, that they might end up in the middle of it. And I won't dismiss that concern. We've certainly had issues in town that were divisive, and I think shielding students from the fact that those conversations are happening it is ultimately not going to help us or be constructive. At the same time, I think we need to work very closely with the school district, which we have been, in how we frame and present these issues to the students. And I'm hoping that these student liaisons can be part of that process. Like how do these issues get framed for the rest of the student body? It's really more about, for us, it's about connecting across a generational gap. That I'm almost 40, which I know is probably still a kid to a lot of you, but I feel so far away from my teenage cousins. I have no idea what's going on in their heads. And I think it's really important that we have speakers from that generation who come in and make contributions and are empowered in some way, just as Rocket said. That's my thought, but I do hear your concerns, and I think as a committee, we should think through them before we go back and write a recommendation for how we think this process should go, and bring it back before you.
Kim?
I'd just like there's a hand up, and it happens to be the school board liaison to the committee. So may I bring them over?
Absolutely.
Can you bring Russell North, please?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you. And congratulations, all newly elected select board members. My name is Russell North, has been indicated. I'm a White River Junction resident. I'm a current member of the Hartford School Board and hope to be reappointed to the H. Corey committee. I am very much in favor of this proposal. It isn't on the agenda for our next meeting, but I was going to raise it for public comment and then put it on the agenda in our community engagement meeting, hopefully to solicit comments from the faculty, the public at large, to see what level of support there is for this proposal. I do think it's important that we engage the students as much as possible. And to Rocket's point, by giving them a vote on the committee, that gives them more of a sense of responsibility and empowerment. Mr. Collins is not wrong that young people are subject to peer pressure. However, as the father of 3 daughters who have attended the Hartford school system, I have learned so much about the topic of equity and inclusion from them. The younger person voice is very important. And after all, they are the future of our community. So those are some of the reasons I think this is important, as well as the fact that it is only a recommendation that the committee can make to each board. There is no empowerment to make policy or decisions in the committee. And I think the other thing is, much like any other committee member, the student representatives would have to come before each board to present the reasoning for why they want to be on the committee. And that would allow board members to judge the maturity, the commitment of those individual students to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Russ. Very important. Mary and then Ally.
I'll just be brief. After 30 years of teaching mostly high school students, I have found that when you give the opportunity to be responsible to students, that they rise far above what people expect of them. And I think there's so much in the workings as far as vetting and the application process that I'm very supportive of giving these students a voice in their future.
Thank you, Mary. Ally?
I'm good.
Are you good?
Yeah.
So it sounds like on this, this is sort of some background for us about what might be coming down the pipeline. Is that right? There's no motion to act on.
No, there's no recommendation. This was really helpful for me. I was getting feedback from you, so I could take it back to the committee, and hopefully we'll get the same level of feedback from the school board and figure out exactly how to bring this back before you.
Wonderful.
Before we
Yes,
wrap
Rob.
this up, I want to say that again, I want to reiterate my support for this. I think ultimately, if especially you can solve the sustainability of the passion, I think the involvement of students is just a beautiful thing. And I'm very supportive of that and grateful you came to present it. I do want to say something that I have a lot of trouble with on this document. It's the charge, and it's number 5. There's a list of things. It's about increasing cultural sensitivity around a number of issues, all of which I agree with, except this term white supremacy. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies, and it just doesn't sit well with me because all these issues are absolutely true. I think the issue for me is it makes me wonder who and where the white supremacists are in our community. And I think, and it feels for me like it can come off implicitly accusing people of a pretty heinous position to take, which is white supremacy. And I think that can be a very alienating thing. Everything else, I mean, inclusion, equity, implicit bias, of course, white privilege, definitely, systemic racism, absolutely. So these things, I'm like, I totally understand own diversity, of course. So I would just ask that when you go back and you discuss this, it's really not, it's, for me, it's the spirit I'm completely on board with, but I think the framing of it can be, can put people in defense. And I actually think what I've seen is oftentimes, students are hearing things from their parents. And there may be younger generations that understand this language packaged as it is. But I also think that it's easy to trip someone's wire because white supremacy, when my dad was a kid growing up in Missouri, was very different in form in some respects and much louder, frankly, than it is today. And so I think that there different generations will read that differently, and that will possibly seed doubt in what H. Corey is trying to do, and seed distrust and division between, especially on the student level, but like parents down, but also just broadly within the community. So that's something I just wanted to bring up reading this. But overall, I'm very supportive. I'm grateful for the work you're doing. And I think this idea of the students being on this is a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Rocket. Nice to formally meet you, very formally meet you. And I will make sure that you have the information about the next Pecori meeting. So you could come and see what we do. And hey, that's a very good point. It would be best if you raise that before the whole committee, and we could have a discussion about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you so much, John. Very helpful. All right, so next is commission reports. I know some of you just gotten elected, may not have attended any boards or commissions yet as a liaison, but we will. Oh, you did? Okay, well, we'll go down the aisle, Lanny, if you've got anything to report. Nothing? Rocket?
Nothing.
Nothing. Ally?
An additional Query update is that one of our committee members, Giovanna Munafo, just want to acknowledge her service to the committee, particularly with the anti-racism and diversity, equity, and inclusion online library, among many other things. She has stepped down from the committee, so there is an open position on Query. Emergency shelter, not much to report beyond just, I think, waiting to hear back about how rental housing code, which was a concern brought up by the public health officer, might apply to some of the RV work that the committee has been seeking to propose. And then Resilient Hartford, they are thinking about whether they want to kind of invest their time and energy in a harvest festival, which I had mentioned previously, which it sounds like a fantastic, but they also are still kind of interested in maybe bringing back Resilience Week, which they did a number of years ago, where they hosted kind of different sessions on resilience topics. And so they understand that both of those things are quite hefty. And so they're just trying to kind of figure out which to direct their energy on. But one of those two things will probably be coming down the pike in the next few months, which is very exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ally. Mary?
Yes, I attended the Conservation Committee last night, and I think it was last night, yes. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. Discussion was primarily on the hurricane forest, the integrated forest integrated plan. And there was a good deal of people who had come out on the 31st of January to discuss what might go into what would be integrated, and of primary importance to people was recreation, first of all, natural resources, second of all, education, third, and timber resources, fourth. There seemed to be some discussion about the timber aspect. And people, quite a few people, actually, not on the committee, but who had come to the meeting, were concerned about logging in the forest and what it would achieve, because the primary purpose of the logging was to diversify the wildlife. And it seems that one member, Ted Levin, talked about how we actually have quite a bit of diversity on Kings Highway, and that actually, if you did a lot of cutting, there are a lot of birds that nest in the ground that would send them away or destroy them because predators would come. So they actually asked me if the board wanted to hear at some point in time a discussion about this. But I think they're going to revisit the integrated plan. And so I'm just bringing that up.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Dan?
Just gonna say the Energy Commission needs some members. The tree board needs a tree warden and a member. And I'll leave it at that.
All right, Kim.
Planning Commission met last night. I had to arrive a little late and leave a little early, but there were discussions around the Historic Preservation Commission being more advisory in communication with the Planning Commission, Interesting discussions around some proposed zoning change. I guess last night was a workshop, not an actual planning commission.
Okay.
There was discussions around some zoning changes to mix from just commercial to commercial residential up around Sykes and Ballardville Drive, a couple different districts. And a big discussion around the solar array site that I think we'll be talking about, that'll be presented to us in a few weeks as well.
Good.
Revolving loan fund is tomorrow morning. That's all I got for now.
All right, Climate Action Committee needs members. That's all I have for that. Consent agenda. I'm ready for a motion.
Like motion?
Yeah.
In honor of Joe.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion. We approve the payroll ending 2/3. We got too many numbers now. How about 3/5/22?
Yeah.
Sorry. Approve the meeting minutes of 2/22/22, which was a Tuesday, and 3/3/22. Approve the AP manifest of 3/2/22 and 3/8/22. Select board meeting dates of needs approval of 4/5/22 and 4/19/22, and already approved of 3/22/22.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All right, Kim, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we don't have executive
Make
session.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Landy Kim.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The recording has stopped.
Really long.